A single sentence can be a key turning a lock you never knew existed. For Sarah Sullivan, a woman who had carried silence like a stone in her chest for 50 years, that sentence would come not from her own lips, but from her daughter's. For Marcus Ashford, a man insulated from the world by billions of dollars and a century of carefully constructed lies, it would be the crack in the foundation of his entire life. She was just trying to protect her daughter. He was just another billionaire in an expensive suit. But when a worn gold ring caught the light in a Denver diner on an ordinary Tuesday night, a flicker of recognition became an inferno that would threaten to burn down everything both families had built. This is not a fairy tale. This is the story of how a casual remark unraveled a web of secrets, how the courage of one dying woman forced a reckoning, and how the truth, buried for generations, finally clawed its way into the light. The morning light filtered through the hospital room window in soft golden bands, falling across the tired face of Sarah Sullivan. At 52, she looked older. Cancer had a way of aging the body while sharpening the soul. She woke to the familiar beep of the cardiac monitor, the sterile smell of disinfectant, the weight of another day borrowed against a debt she could never fully repay. Her eyes found the small velvet box on the bedside table. She had insisted they bring it from home. The nurses thought it was sentiment. They were wrong. It was evidence. It was inheritance. It was a promise made by a man she had never met to a woman who had died before Sarah was born. And it was, she knew with the certainty that comes only at the end of things, finally time. Sarah reached for the box with trembling fingers. The velvet was worn smooth in places. The deep blue faded to something gentler. She opened it slowly. The ring inside caught the morning light and threw it back in sharp golden angles. An eagle in flight, wings spread wide, crafted in pale buttery gold. At the center of the eagle's body, where a heart might be, a single sapphire gleamed like a captured piece of sky. The band itself was a marvel of craftsmanship, carved to look like intertwined feathers, each one distinct, each one perfect. She had looked at this ring 10,000 times. She had held it through every crisis of her adult life. When her husband died in that workshop accident, leaving her with a 10-year-old daughter and a mountain of debt. When the first medical bills arrived, and she realized she would die before she could pay them off. When Maya came home from yet another double shift, exhausted and beautiful and sacrificing everything for a mother who had given her nothing but struggle. The ring had been her anchor. Her grandfather, Thomas Garrett, had pressed it into her palm on his deathbed. She was 8 years old. His hands were shaking. His breath came in shallow gasps, but his eyes, when they met hers, were fierce with an intensity that had terrified and transfixed her. "This is proof, Sarah." He had whispered the words so quietly, her mother almost missed them. "Proof of what is right. One day, when you are ready, when you are strong enough, you will know what to do with it. Keep it safe, keep it hidden, and never, never let them make you forget what they did to us." She had not understood then. She was 8. She understood fear, though. She understood the way her mother's hands shook when she thought Sarah was not looking. She understood the way her father cried in the night, the sounds muffled through the thin walls of their new apartment in a city where they knew no one. She understood that men in dark suits had come to their house and her father had signed papers, and they had left everything behind. Now, 50 years later, she understood everything. And the weight of that understanding was crushing her as surely as the cancer was. A soft knock at the door pulled her from her thoughts. Maya entered, still wearing her uniform from the corner booth diner. Coffee stains on the white apron, dark circles under her eyes. 24 years old, and already carrying the weight of the world. Sarah's heart broke and swelled in equal measure. "Morning, Mom." Maya's voice was soft. She crossed to the bed and bent to kiss Sarah's forehead, a ritual as old as memory. "You should have slept more," says the woman who just worked a double shift. Sarah managed a smile. "Sit down, sweetheart. You look dead on your feet." Maya sank into the bedside chair with a sigh that seemed to come from her bones. She glanced at the velvet box in Sarah's hands, still open, the ring glinting between them like a question neither had the courage to ask. Her expression shifted, something guarded sliding behind her eyes. "You were looking at Grandpa's ring?" Sarah nodded slowly. She closed the box and set it back on the table, but her fingers lingered on the velvet. Not yet. Not this morning. Maya had enough burdens, but soon. Very soon. Just remembering, Sarah reached out and took her daughter's hand. How was the shift? Maya's laugh was bitter and tired. The usual. Demanding customers, terrible tips. Jenny covered for me when I needed to cry in the walk-in freezer, so that was nice. Sarah squeezed her hand. You are the strongest person I know. I don't feel strong. Maya's voice cracked. I feel like I'm drowning, Mom, and I keep treading water, but I can't see the shore anymore. Sarah felt the words like a physical blow. This was her fault. All of it. She had stayed silent. She had let fear rule her. She had taught her daughter that safety meant swallowing truth, that survival meant accepting injustice. And now Maya was paying the price. The moment stretched between them, heavy with things unsaid. Then Maya glanced at her phone and winced. I should go. I need to grab a few hours of sleep before my shift at the bookstore. Maya. Sarah heard herself say it before she had made the decision. The name came out sharp, urgent. Maya paused, half standing. When this is over, when I am gone, I need you to know something. Maya sank back into the chair, her face going pale. Mom, please, we are not talking about this now. We have to. Sarah could feel it now. The urgency beating in her chest like a second heart. The secret she had carried for so long was no longer a weight she could bear alone. I need you to promise me something. When the time comes, when you find out the truth about this ring, about our family, about everything I have never told you. Promise me you will not be afraid. Promise me you will fight. Me, you will. Maya's eyes were wide, frightened. What are you talking about? What truth? Sarah opened her mouth to answer, to finally break the silence, to tell her daughter everything. But then she saw the fear in Maya's eyes, the exhaustion in every line of her body, and the words died in her throat. Not yet. Not like this. Maya needed to be stronger. The truth would come. Sarah could feel it gathering like a storm on the horizon. But it would not come today. Nothing, sweetheart. Sarah forced a smile. Just the medication's making me maudlin. Go get some rest. Maya hesitated, clearly unconvinced. But exhaustion won. She kissed Sarah's forehead again, squeezed her hand, and left. The door closed with a soft click. Sarah was alone with her secrets again. She picked up the velvet box one more time, opened it, stared at the eagle with its sapphire eye. Maybe it is time, she whispered to the empty room. Maybe I have been a coward long enough. The fluorescent lights of the corner booth diner hummed their monotonous song. It was the soundtrack of Maya Sullivan's life. The sizzle of burgers on the griddle, the clatter of cheap ceramic plates, the low murmur of conversations that never seemed to change. At 9 o'clock on a Tuesday night, the diner was in its nightly lull, that brief respite between the dinner rush and the late-night crowd of insomniacs and shift workers. Maya leaned against the cool stainless steel counter, rolling her shoulders to work out a knot of exhaustion. Every muscle ached with the kind of fatigue that went deeper than physical. It was the soul-deep weariness of watching your mother slowly fade in a hospital room, while the bills piled higher and higher. An avalanche of numbers that no amount of double shifts could ever stop. The bell above the door chimed. Maya glanced up out of habit, her professional smile already sliding into place. Then the smile faltered. The man who entered was not like the diner's usual patrons. He was not a trucker stopping for coffee on a long haul. He was not a college student cramming for exams over endless refills. He was something else entirely. He wore power like a second skin. His suit was charcoal gray, so dark it was almost black, and it fit him with the kind of precision that spoke of tailors and measurements, and more money than Maya made in a year. His shoes gleamed even under the diner's grimy lights. His hair was dark, touched with gray at the temples, styled with careless perfection. But it was not the suit or the shoes that made the few remaining patrons instinctively lower their voices. It was the way he moved. With absolute confidence, with the certainty of a man who had never been told no, who had never had to ask twice for anything. He chose a booth in the corner, sliding onto the cracked vinyl seat with an economy of motion that suggested he found the entire diner vaguely distasteful, but was too well-bred to show it. Jenny Chen, Maya's friend and fellow waitress appeared at her elbow. She was 28, sharp-tongued and sharp-eyed, and she had been covering for Maya's exhaustion all night. "Get a load of Mr. Moneybags." Jenny's whisper was just loud enough for Maya to hear. $10 says that is Marcus Ashford. Maya frowned. Who? Marcus Ashford. Ashford Industries. They own half the downtown skyline. My cousin works in one of their buildings. Says Ashford is ruthless. Brilliant. Built his family's empire into billions by his mid-30s. That kind of rich where money stops being real and starts being a scoreboard. Maya grabbed a menu and a glass of water. To me, he is just another customer who wants coffee. She walked to the booth, forcing her tired feet to carry her those last few steps. The professional smile was back in place, though it felt brittle. "Welcome to the corner booth. Can I get you started with something to drink?" The man looked up. His eyes were blue, startlingly, impossibly blue, like winter sky over mountains. They met hers for a brief, dismissive moment. "Just coffee. Black." His voice was low and resonant, the kind of voice that commanded boardrooms and brokered deals worth more than entire towns. "Coming right up." Maya turned away, feeling his gaze slide off her like water off glass. She was invisible to him. Another server, another face in an endless parade of service workers he would never remember. She had been invisible her whole life. It should not have stung. But tonight, exhausted and scared and carrying her mother's cryptic warnings in her chest, it did. She poured the coffee with practiced efficiency. When she returned to the booth, the man was staring out the window at the neon-lit street beyond. His profile was sharp, severe, the face of a man who solved problems and moved on. As she set the coffee down, he reached for it. His hand emerged from the cuff of his sleeve. That was when Maya's world tilted. On his right ring finger, gleaming against his tan skin, was a ring. An eagle in flight, wings spread wide, crafted in pale gold. At its heart, a single sapphire that caught the light and threw it back like a star. The band was carved in the pattern of intertwined feathers. It was identical, not similar, not reminiscent, identical down to the last detail, to the ring in the velvet box on her mother's bedside table, to the ring her grandfather had given to Sarah with his dying breath, to the ring Maya had held in her own hands 1,000 times, memorizing every curve, every feather, every facet of that impossible sapphire. The words tumbled out of her mouth before she could stop them, before she could think about what they might mean or what doors they might open. A quiet, stunned whisper. "Hi, sir. My mother has a ring just like yours." The man froze. His hand, which had been reaching for the coffee cup, stopped in midair. Slowly, as if time itself had thickened, he withdrew it. His eyes, those impossible blue eyes, lifted to meet hers. The casual dismissal was gone. In its place was something colder, sharper, an intensity that felt like being dissected. "Excuse me?" The single word was a knife. Maya's heart hammered against her ribs. She felt Jenny's worried stare from across the room. She should walk away, should laugh it off, should do anything but stand here under this man's glacial gaze. But the ring was right there, impossible and real. The ring. She heard her voice as if from a great distance, saw her trembling finger pointing. "On your hand. It is the same as my mother's. The eagle, the sapphire, everything." A flicker of something crossed his face. Not surprise, not recognition. Something harder, darker. He slowly turned his hand over, examining the ring as if seeing it for the first time. The silence stretched between them like a wire pulled taut. "That is impossible." He did not phrase it as a question. It was a statement, a verdict. He looked up at her again, and this time there was something almost dangerous in his expression. "This ring has been in my family for over 100 years. It was custom made for my great-grandfather. There is no other ring like it. There has never been another ring like it. But there is." Maya's voice gained a desperate edge. She knew she should stop, knew she was crossing some invisible line. But she could not. Not with her mother's words echoing in her head. Proof of what is right. "One day you will know what to do. My mother has had it my whole life. Her grandfather gave it to her before he died. He told her it was one of a kind." The man placed his hand flat on the table. The ring sat there between them, a silent accusation. His gaze was cold steel. "This ring," he said, enunciating each word with chilling precision, "has been in the Ashford family for over a century. It was commissioned by my great-grandfather, Edmund Ashford. There is no other. There has never been another. You are mistaken." The finality in his tone felt like a slap. He was calling her a liar, or worse, calling her mother a liar. The injustice of it, piled on top of exhaustion and fear and 50 sleepless nights, ignited something in Maya's chest, a spark of defiance she did not know she possessed. "I am not mistaken." Her voice was low but firm. "I have held it in my hands more times than I can count. I know every detail on it. I could draw it from memory." He leaned back slightly. A faint, condescending smile touched his lips. It did not reach his eyes. "A fascinating story. What is your name?" "Maya. Maya Sullivan." "Well, Miss Sullivan." He picked up his coffee cup and took a slow, deliberate sip. "Your mother is either a liar or a thief. Because the only way she has a ring like this is if it is the ring that was stolen from my family 50 years ago." He set the cup down with a soft click. The sound echoed in the sudden silence of Maya's world. Stolen. The word hung in the air, thick and poisonous. Her mother, the gentlest, most honest person she knew, a thief. The accusation was so absurd, so vile. It was like being told the sun rose in the west. The man reached into his suit jacket and pulled out a slim leather wallet. He extracted $300 bills and placed them on the table. It was more than Maya made in 2 shifts. It was an insult disguised as generosity. "For the coffee and your time." He stood. The power of his presence filled the small booth, made it feel even smaller. He was already gone in his mind, already moving past her, dismissing her and her impossible claim. As he walked toward the exit, Maya found her voice. It came out stronger than she felt. "She is not a thief." He paused at the door, did not turn around. His voice carried clearly across the quiet diner. "Then prove it." The bell chimed. He was gone. Maya stood there in the middle of the corner booth, her heart pounding, the hum of the lights suddenly sounding like a scream. The $300 bills on the table felt like blood money. She had not just served coffee to a billionaire. She had stumbled into something, his story and hers, colliding in a way that felt like fate or disaster or both. And she realized, with cold dread settling in her stomach, that everything was about to change. The drive to the hospital was a blur of traffic lights and the anxious thumping of her own heart. Marcus Ashford's words echoed in her head. A liar or a thief? It was preposterous. Sarah Sullivan was a woman who would walk back into a store to return a few cents of extra change. But the ring, the identical ring, how could there be 2? Maya found her mother awake, sitting up in bed, the small reading light casting soft shadows across her face. Sarah took one look at Maya's expression and set down the book of poetry she had been reading. "What happened?" Maya sank into the bedside chair. Her hands were shaking. She pulled out her phone, searched for Marcus Ashford, found his picture on a dozen business websites. She turned the screen toward her mother. "Do you know this man?" Sarah's face went very still. The color drained from her cheeks. She stared at the photo for a long moment, and when she finally spoke, her voice was barely a whisper. "He looks like him, like his grandfather, Victor." "You know him?" Maya felt the world tilting again. Sarah closed her eyes. When she opened them, they were bright with unshed tears. "I know the name. Ashford. Your grandfather spoke it once, near the end. He said it like a curse." Maya leaned forward. "Mom, this man, Marcus Ashford, came into the diner tonight. He was wearing a ring. The ring. Exactly like Grandpa's." Sarah's hand flew to her mouth. "Oh, God." "He said, Mom, he said the ring has been in his family for over 100 years. He said there is no other ring like it. He said if you have one, you either stole it or you are lying." The words hung between them. Sarah was trembling now, her whole body shaking with something that looked like fear and fury and a terrible aching relief. Maya reached for her hand. "Mom, please, tell me the truth. Where did the ring come from?" "Really?" Sarah looked at her daughter. at the exhaustion in her eyes, the fear, the desperate need to understand. And she made a decision. The same decision she had been circling for weeks, for months, for 50 years. Close the door, Maya did. When she returned to the bedside, Sarah was opening the velvet box. She lifted the ring out, held it up to the light. The eagle's wings caught the fluorescent glow and seemed to shimmer. Your grandfather, Thomas Garrett, gave this to me when I was 8 years old. Sarah's voice was steady now, as if speaking the words aloud was giving her strength. He was dying. Cancer, like me. Poetic, is it not? He made me promise to keep it safe. He told me it was proof. Proof of what? Sarah took a deep breath. Let me tell you a story, Maya, about the day everything changed. She began to speak. And as she spoke, Maya felt the ground shifting beneath her, felt the carefully constructed narrative of her family's history crumbling like sand. It was 1968. I was 8 years old. We lived in Wilmington, Delaware. Yellow siding, a maple tree in the front yard. Your grandfather worked for an engineering firm. He was brilliant, Maya, truly brilliant. He had invented something, a gearing system for turbines. It was revolutionary. He was so excited. He came home every night and told my mother about it, about how it was going to change everything, how we would finally be secure. Sarah's hands tightened on the ring. Then one day 2 men came to our house. I was playing in the backyard. I saw them through the kitchen window. They were not like anyone I had ever seen. Dark suits, expressions like stone. They put photographs on our kitchen table. Her voice began to shake. One photograph was of me, at school, playing on the monkey bars. Another was of my mother at the grocery store. They told my father what a beautiful family he had. They told him it would be a shame if something happened to us. Maya felt ice water in her veins. Mom. They gave him papers to sign. A non-disclosure agreement, a contract assigning all rights to his invention to a shell corporation. And an envelope full of cash. $50,000. My father's hands were shaking so hard he could barely hold the pen. But he signed. He signed everything. Because what choice did he have? Sarah was crying now, silent tears streaming down her face. We moved a week later, to a city where we knew no one. My father never worked in engineering again. He took a job in a factory. Every day I watched him die a little more. The light went out of his eyes, and 6 years later, his heart gave out. He was only 28 years old. The doctor said heart attack. Sarah looked at Maya, her gaze fierce and broken. But I know the truth. They killed him, not with a bullet, not with a blade, but they killed him just the same. They stole his dream and his dignity and his hope, and they paid him to stay silent about it. Maya could barely breathe. Who were they? Who did this? Victor Ashford. Sarah's voice was hard. The grandfather of the man who came into your diner tonight. The man who built the Ashford fortune on my father's stolen work. The man who threatened a family, terrorized a little girl, destroyed a good man's life. And the ring? Maya whispered. Sarah looked down at it. This was given to my grandmother Helen by a man named Daniel, before I was born, before your grandfather was born even. She never told anyone the full story, only that Daniel was a good man, a man who had been wronged by powerful people. He gave her the ring and told her it was proof that integrity has value that money cannot buy, that one day the truth would matter. She placed the ring in Maya's palm. The gold was warm from her mother's hand. Now that man's grandson has the other ring. And he has called us liars and thieves. And I think, Maya, it is finally time for the truth to come out. Maya stared at the ring, at the eagle with its sapphire eye. She thought about Marcus Ashford's cold certainty, about her mother's trembling hands, about her grandfather, dead at 28, his dreams stolen. What do we do? Sarah wiped her tears. She looked stronger than she had in weeks. We prove it. We prove everything. Miles away, in a penthouse apartment that seemed to float above the city, Marcus Ashford stood before floor-to-ceiling windows. The city lights spread below him like scattered diamonds. He held a glass of scotch, the amber liquid untouched. He could not shake the encounter at the diner. The girl, Maya Sullivan, her wide, honest eyes, her absolute certainty. My mother has a ring just like yours. It was ludicrous. Impossible. And yet, he walked to his desk and unlocked a drawer. Inside was a leather-bound folio, the Ashford family archives. He opened it to the section on heirlooms. There, on a yellowed page, was a photograph of the ring. His ring. The description was clear. The eagle signet, commissioned in 1922 by Edmund Ashford, forged by artisan Michel Dubois of Paris. Unique design. Symbol of the Ashford family's rebirth from the ashes of financial ruin. Sole ownership passed down to the male heir of each generation. His father had given him the ring on his 21st birthday. This represents our resilience, Marcus. His father's voice, thick with pride and something darker. We always rise. Never forget that. Marcus's phone rang. He glanced at the screen. Catherine Stone, he answered. You are still awake. Catherine's voice was crisp, professional, but with an undercurrent of warmth. She had been his father's lawyer before she was his. She was 62, sharp as a blade, and one of the few people Marcus trusted. Something has come up. Marcus kept his voice neutral. I need you to run a background check. Quietly. Another hostile takeover. A person. Her name is Maya Sullivan. She works at a diner on 6th Street, the corner booth. Her mother's name is Sarah Sullivan. I want to know everything. Financials, family history, where they came from, who their people were, everything. There was a pause. Catherine was too professional to ask why, but Marcus could hear her curiosity. Is this personal or professional, Marcus? Marcus looked at the ring on his finger. The eagle stared back with its cold sapphire eye. I am not sure yet, but it has the potential to become problematic. He thought about the family stories his grandfather used to tell. Stories told only after too much brandy. When the old man's eyes went distant and his voice dropped low. Stories about Edmund Ashford's younger brother, Daniel. How Daniel had betrayed the family. How he had tried to steal Edmund's designs. How he had taken a ring, a spare signet ring that Edmund had foolishly commissioned. How Daniel had been cast out, disowned, erased from the family tree. But the official history, the one in the folio before him, never mentioned a second ring. Never mentioned a brother named Daniel. It was a ghost story, a cautionary tale. Until now. Find out who Sarah Sullivan's father was. Marcus heard the hardness creeping into his voice. I want his name. I want to know what he did for a living. And I want to know if he ever, for any reason, crossed paths with my family. He ended the call, stared out at the city. For the first time in a very long time, Marcus Ashford felt something other than control. It felt like standing on ice and hearing the first faint crack beneath his feet. He had told the girl to prove it, but now he realized, with grim certainty, he had to do the same. He had to prove his own story was the truth, and he was no longer sure he wanted to know the answer. 3 days passed in a strange, suspended tension. Maya worked her shifts, visited her mother, carried the weight of Sarah's story like stones in her pockets. The ring stayed in its velvet box on the hospital bedside table, but Maya thought about it constantly. Proof. The truth. A dead man's dream. She was refilling the salt shakers at the diner when Jenny appeared at her elbow. You have a visitor. Jenny's voice was carefully neutral, but her eyes were bright with curiosity. She tilted her head toward the corner booth. Maya's heart stopped. It was not Marcus Ashford. It was a woman, 60-something, silver hair pulled back in an elegant twist, wearing a perfectly tailored suit in deep navy. She sat with the kind of posture that spoke of boarding schools and country clubs and old money. But her eyes, when they met Maya's, were kind. Maya approached slowly. Can I help you? The woman smiled. It was a real smile, warm and without condescension. Miss Sullivan, my name is Catherine Stone. I am an attorney. I represent Marcus Ashford. May I have a moment of your time? Maya's first instinct was to say no, to walk away. But something in the woman's expression stopped her. There was no threat there, no judgment, just a calm intelligence and what looked almost like sympathy. I'm on break in 5 minutes. Excellent. Catherine gestured to the seat across from her. I will wait. 5 minutes later, Maya slid into the booth. She had a cup of coffee in front of her, more for something to do with her hands than any desire to drink it. Catherine ordered tea. When the server left, she folded her hands on the table and looked at Maya directly. I want to be very clear about something. Catherine's voice was low, meant only for Maya to hear. I am Marcus Ashford's attorney, but I am also a human being, and I am a mother. What I am about to tell you, I am telling you, because I believe you deserve to know. She pulled a slim folder from her briefcase and placed it on the table. Inside was a single document, a patent application, dated 1968. Inventor, Thomas Garrett. Subject, novel gearing system for high-torque industrial turbines. Maya stared at it. That is my grandfather. I know. Catherine's voice was gentle. The patent was withdrawn on October 12, 1968. 2 days later, your grandfather deposited $50,000 into his savings account. He quit his job a week after that, moved his family, never worked in engineering again. He died 6 years later. Maya felt tears burning behind her eyes. How do you know all this? Because Marcus asked me to investigate. And I am very good at my job. Catherine paused. There is more. The technology in this patent application is nearly identical to the design that launched the Ashford Mark III turbine in the early 70s. The invention that turned Victor Ashford from a millionaire into a billionaire. Maya's hands were shaking. So it is true. They stole it. It appears that way. Catherine's expression was somber. The $50,000 was likely positioned as a consulting fee, to keep it legal on paper. There is no direct paper trail linking the payment to the patent. Victor Ashford was meticulous. Maya looked up, met Catherine's eyes. Why are you telling me this? You work for Marcus Ashford. I do. Catherine's smile was sad. But I have been doing this for 40 years, Miss Sullivan. I have seen men build empires on the backs of people they destroyed. And I have learned that the truth, eventually, always matters. Even when it is inconvenient. Especially when it is inconvenient. She reached across the table and gently closed the folder. Marcus is struggling with this, with what it means, what his family has done. He is a good man, trapped in a legacy he did not choose. But he is also stubborn and proud. He will not admit fault easily. Then why should I trust anything you are telling me? Catherine considered the question. You should not based on my word alone. But I can give you access to the records, to the truth. And I can tell you that if you are willing to pursue this, if you are willing to fight, you will not be alone. Maya felt something shift inside her, a decision crystallizing. For my mother. This is for my mother. Of course it is. Catherine's voice was warm. Mothers and daughters. It is always about them in the end. She stood, placed a business card on the table. My personal number is on there. Call me when you are ready. We will find the truth together. After she left, Maya sat in the booth for a long time, staring at the business card, the folder, the impossible weight of it all. Then she pulled out her phone and called Sarah. Mom, her voice was steady. I think we just found our proof. That evening, Sarah made a decision that both terrified and liberated her. She called Maya to her bedside. When her daughter arrived, Sarah was sitting up, looking stronger than she had in days. There was color in her cheeks, a light in her eyes. I am ready, Sarah said it simply. I am ready to stop being afraid. Maya took her mother's hand. What changed? Sarah looked at the ring in its velvet box. For 50 years, I have carried this secret. For 50 years, I have let fear silence me. But I am dying, Maya. And I do not want to die the way my father did, broken, silent, believing the lie that powerful men always win. She squeezed Maya's hand. I want to fight. I want to tell the truth. All of it. Even if it costs us everything. Even if it destroys me. I want to look the Ashford family in the eye and say, you did not break us. You tried. But we survived. And the truth survived with us. Maya felt tears streaming down her face. Mom, will you help me? Sarah's voice was quiet but fierce. Will you stand with me? Maya thought about her grandfather, dying at 28. About the photographs on the kitchen table. About her mother, 8 years old, watching her father's soul being crushed. About Marcus Ashford's cold certainty. About Catherine Stone's quiet offer of alliance. She thought about the ring, the eagle with its sapphire eye, proof of what is right. Yes, Maya's voice was strong. I will stand with you. We will do this together. Sarah smiled. It was the first real smile Maya had seen on her mother's face in months. Then let us begin. They spent the evening making plans. Sarah told Maya everything she remembered, every detail of that day in 1968, the men's faces, the photographs, her father's trembling hands. They wrote it all down. Maya recorded Sarah speaking, her voice steady and clear, telling her story for the record. When they were done, it was late. Maya should have been exhausted, but she felt something else, something that felt dangerously like hope. As she was leaving, Sarah called her back. Maya. Yeah, Mom? Sarah's expression was serious. This will get ugly. The Ashfords will fight. They will try to discredit us. They will say I am a dying woman making false claims for money. They will say terrible things. I know. Can you handle that? Can you handle people thinking the worst of us? Maya looked at her mother, at the woman who had raised her alone after her father died, who had worked 2 jobs to keep them fed, who had never once asked for pity or handouts, who had survived cancer and poverty and a lifetime of carrying someone else's sin. I can handle anything, Maya said it with conviction, as long as I'm standing next to you. Sarah nodded. Her eyes were bright. That is my girl. That is Thomas Garrett's granddaughter. We come from fighters, Maya. We come from people who chose integrity over comfort. Let us show the Ashfords what that means. The next morning, Maya called Catherine Stone. The conversation was brief, professional, and ended with an agreement. They would meet, all of them. Marcus Ashford, Catherine, Sarah, Maya. They would lay the cards on the table. They would see if the truth could survive the light of day. As Maya hung up the phone, she looked at the velvet box one more time. The ring inside seemed to glow, as if it had been waiting for this moment, for someone brave enough to open the lock it represented. A single sentence can change everything. Hi, sir, my mother has a ring just like yours. Maya had thought it was just an observation, just a comment. She had not known it was a key, but now the door was open, and there was no closing it again. The truth was coming, and with it, a reckoning a century in the making. The past is never truly buried. It lies beneath the surface, waiting for the right moment to break through, to demand accounting. For Sarah Sullivan, that moment came on a Tuesday morning in a hospital room that smelled of antiseptic and approaching endings. For Marcus Ashford, it came in the form of documents that turned his entire understanding of his family into ash. The truth, once released, cannot be recalled. It spreads like water through cracks in stone, finding every weak point, every hidden place. And sometimes, the truth is the only thing strong enough to break what needs breaking. Sarah sat upright in her hospital bed, her hands folded in her lap with the kind of stillness that comes before a storm. Maya had arrived early, as she did most mornings now, bringing coffee and the determined expression of a woman who had made up her mind to know everything. No more evasions, no more half-truths. The velvet box sat open on the bedside table, the eagle ring catching the morning light like an accusation. Maya pulled her chair close. She had her phone out, ready to record. This was history now. Evidence. Whatever her mother was about to say needed to be preserved, needed to be witnessed. Tell me everything, Mom. From the beginning, everything you remember about that day. Sarah took a breath. It was steadier than Maya expected. When you carry a weight for 50 years, sometimes the only relief is setting it down, no matter how much it hurts to do so. It was October, 1968. I was 8 years old. We lived in a small house in Wilmington, Delaware. Yellow siding. A maple tree in the front yard that turned red every fall. I used to climb it when I wanted to think. Your grandfather worked at Henderson Engineering. He was their lead turbine specialist. He loved that job, Maya. He would come home and his eyes would be bright. He would talk about torque ratios and gear configurations like other men talked about football. Sarah's gaze drifted to the window, but she was not seeing the Denver skyline. She was seeing a kitchen from half a century ago, seeing her father's hands spread across blueprints on their dinner table, seeing her mother laughing as he tried to explain his latest breakthrough using salt shakers and spoons as models. He had been working on something for months, on his own time, after his shifts, a new gearing system. It was revolutionary, he told us. It would make industrial turbines 30% more efficient. It would change manufacturing, energy production, everything. He was going to file a patent. He was going to change our lives. The warmth left her voice. Then one Thursday afternoon, two men came to our house. I was in the backyard, playing with my dolls under the oak tree. I heard a car pull up, a black sedan. Expensive. I watched them walk up to the door. They were not like anyone I had ever seen in our neighborhood. Dark suits, faces like carved stone. They knocked. My father answered. Maya's hand tightened on the phone. She said nothing. Let her mother speak. I could not hear what they said, but I could see through the kitchen window. They came inside. My mother stood by the sink. Her hands were gripping the counter. The men put a briefcase on our table, opened it, started pulling out photographs. Sarah's voice dropped to barely above a whisper. One by one, they laid them out, and I saw them, even from outside. I saw myself, playing at school, sitting in class, walking home. They had been watching me. Her hands began to shake. The next photograph was my mother, at the grocery store, at church, getting into our car. They had been watching all of us, for weeks, maybe months. My father's face went white. My mother made a sound, like something breaking inside her, and one of the men said something. I could not hear the words, but I saw my father's expression. Terror, pure terror. Sarah closed her eyes. They put papers in front of him, a stack of them, and an envelope, a thick envelope. My father tried to argue. I could tell by his body language. He was shaking his head. His hands were moving, desperate, pleading. But the men just stood there, immovable. And finally, my father picked up the pen. The silence in the hospital room was absolute. Maya could hear her own heartbeat, could hear the machines monitoring her mother's failing body, could hear the weight of 50 years of silence finally breaking. He signed everything. Sarah opened her eyes. They were wet, but no tears fell. Every page. His hands were shaking so badly he could barely hold the pen. When he was done, one of the men smiled, actually smiled, handed him the envelope, told him something, shook his hand, like they had just completed a business transaction. Then they left. What happened after? My father sat at that table for 3 hours, did not move, did not speak. My mother kept asking him what happened. What did they want? He would not answer. Finally, he looked up at her. His face. Sarah's voice broke. I had never seen him look like that, like something inside him had died. He told her we had to leave. We had to leave that night. We could not tell anyone where we were going. We could not say goodbye to neighbors, to friends, to anyone. And you did? We were gone by morning, left everything we could not fit in the car, my toys, my books, my father's tools. We drove for 2 days, ended up here, in Denver, a city where we knew no one, had no connections. My father took a job at a factory, assembly line work. He never touched engineering again. Maya felt rage building in her chest, a cold, focused rage. What was in the envelope? $50,000. Sarah's laugh was bitter. Blood money, hush money, payment for my father's silence and his soul. He tried to use it to start over, put a down payment on a small house, paid for my school clothes, but it burned through his fingers. Within a year, it was gone, and we were left with nothing but the memory of what he had lost. The patent. Maya said it quietly. They stole the patent. The patent, the design, the dream, everything. Sarah's voice hardened. 6 years later, Victor Ashford unveiled the Ashford Mark III turbine. Revolutionary efficiency. Changed the industry. Made the Ashford family billions. It was my father's design, Maya. Every specification, every innovation. Stolen. Did he ever try to fight back? Sarah shook her head. How could he? They had made it clear. If he spoke, if he tried to reclaim what was his, we would pay the price. My mother, me, we were the leverage, the threat that kept him silent until the day he died. Maya set down her phone, reached across and took her mother's hands. They were cold. I'm so sorry, Mom. I am so sorry you carried this alone. Sarah squeezed back. I was not alone. I had your grandfather's strength, your grandmother's love, and I had you. You kept me going, Maya. You were the reason I survived. But now, She looked at her daughter with fierce determination. Now, I am done surviving. I want to fight. I want them to answer for what they did. Then we fight. Maya's voice was steel. We make them answer. Across the city, in a library that smelled of old paper and older secrets, Marcus Ashford was having his own reckoning. The ancestral estate sat an hour outside Denver, a sprawling stone edifice that his family visited perhaps twice a year for formal gatherings and to maintain appearances. Marcus had driven out alone before dawn, unable to sleep, Catherine Stone's report burning a hole in his mind. The library was untouched by time. Dark wood paneling, leather-bound books lining shelves that reached to 15-foot ceilings, a massive desk that had belonged to his great-grandfather Edmund. Marcus had called ahead to have the housekeeper open the archives, the boxes of private correspondence that his grandfather Victor had kept locked away. Now those boxes sat before him, decades of secrets. He lifted the lid of the first one. Inside were letters, tied with faded ribbon, contracts, legal documents, the paper trail of an empire. He started reading. At first it was mundane, business dealings, property acquisitions, the usual machinery of wealth accumulation. Then he found a series of letters from the late 1960s, correspondence between Victor Ashford and a man named Gerald Pierce, the head of security for Ashford Industries. The first letter made Marcus's stomach turn. Subject: Thomas Garrett, engineer at Henderson Engineering, has developed proprietary turbine technology. Recommend immediate acquisition. The second letter was worse. Garrett refuses to sell outright, suggests we may need to employ alternative strategies to secure the asset. Recommend surveillance and pressure tactics. The third letter was clinical in its cruelty. Surveillance complete. Subject has wife and 8-year-old daughter. Daily routines documented. Recommend approach utilizing family security concerns as leverage point. And finally, the memo that confirmed everything. Subject Garrett has been neutralized. All patents and designs transferred to subsidiary corporation. Paid $50,000 as consulting fee to maintain legal appearances. Subject relocated out of state. Asset secured. He is no longer a threat. Marcus pushed back from the desk. He felt physically ill. His grandfather, the man who had raised him after his father retreated into European exile, the man who had taught him about business and strategy and winning, had done this, had terrorized a family, had stolen a man's life's work, had paid him to stay silent and then built an empire on the theft. The Ashford Mark III turbine, the flagship product that had launched them from regional success to global dominance. It was based on stolen designs. Everything Marcus owned, everything he had inherited, everything he thought he had earned through his own merit, was built on a foundation of crime. He stood, walked to the window. Outside, perfectly manicured grounds stretched toward distant tree lines. All of this, bought with blood money. His phone rang. Catherine Stone, he answered. Tell me you found something that makes this better. His voice was raw. I did not. Catherine's tone was gentle but firm. I found something that makes it worse. That seems impossible. Victor Ashford's surveillance was not limited to the Garrett family. I found records of 14 other engineers, designers, and inventors between 1965 and 1985. All of them had innovations that somehow ended up as Ashford patents. All of them were paid off or threatened into silence. Your grandfather ran a systematic operation to steal intellectual property. Marcus closed his eyes. How did no one ever find out? He was careful, meticulous, used shell companies, paid in cash when he could. And the people he targeted were not powerful. They were working class, immigrants, people without the resources to fight a billionaire. Catherine paused. But Marcus, there is something else. Something I found in your great-grandfather's papers. What? A note? In Edmund Ashford's handwriting. It was tucked into a private journal from 1968, the same year as the Garrett theft. It says, and I quote, "He knows. R found him. Daniel is the key. Must protect the name above all." Marcus felt the hairs on his neck stand up. Who is R? I do not know. But the timeline suggests it was someone working with or for Victor. And the mention of Daniel. Catherine's voice dropped. I think the family legend about your great-uncle might not be legend. Daniel Ashford. Marcus said the name slowly. The story was that he was a traitor, That he stole from Edmund and was cast out? What if it was the other way around? Catherine let the question hang. What if Daniel was cast out for something else? And what if he knew about the business practices? What if he was a threat not because of what he took, but because of what he knew? Marcus returned to the desk, started going through more boxes. His hands were shaking now, not from fear, from a growing sense that his entire life had been a lie, that every assumption he had made about his family, about his legacy, about himself, was built on sand. Then he found it, a leather journal, Edmund Ashford's personal diary. He opened it to the entries from 1940. The handwriting was spidery, old-fashioned, difficult to read, but the words were clear enough. Daniel has become impossible. His relationship with that woman, that servant, is an embarrassment to our name. Father will not hear of it. I have told Daniel he must choose. The family or her. He cannot have both. Marcus flipped forward. The next entry was dated 3 months later. Daniel has chosen. The fool has chosen her. He left last night. Took nothing but the ring I had commissioned for him, our partnership ring. Father is heartbroken. I am furious. But perhaps this is for the best. Daniel was always too soft, too concerned with matters of heart over matters of business. We are better off without him. But it was the entry from 5 years later that stopped Marcus cold. Father is dying. He asks for Daniel daily, wants to see him, to reconcile. I have told him Daniel is unreachable. I have told him it is too late. But the truth is, I know where Daniel is. I have known for years. I simply choose not to reach out. Daniel made his choice. He chose poverty and obscurity over our legacy. Let him live with that choice, and let our family move forward without the dead weight of his sentimentality. Marcus sat back. The picture was coming together. Daniel had not betrayed the family. He had been betrayed by them, cast out for loving someone deemed unsuitable. And Edmund, Marcus's great-grandfather, had known where Daniel was and had deliberately kept him away from their dying father, had let the old man die without reconciliation. What kind of family does that? Marcus asked the empty room. What kind of man does that? But he knew the answer. A family that valued reputation over relationship, power over humanity. A family like the Ashfords. He pulled out his phone, called Catherine. I need you to arrange a meeting. Maya Sullivan and her mother. Neutral location. As soon as possible. You want to meet them? I need to meet them. I need to. He searched for the words. I need to look them in the eye and admit what my family did. And I need to find out what they know about Daniel. Marcus. Catherine's voice held a warning. If you do this, if you start down this path, there is no going back. Your cousin Richard will fight you. The board will fight you. You could lose everything. Marcus looked at the journal in his hands, at the evidence of his grandfather's crime spread across the desk. Then I lose it. All of it. Because what is the point of an empire built on theft and threats? What is the point of a legacy that requires silence about its sins? There was a long pause. Then Catherine spoke, and there was pride in her voice. I will make the arrangements. And Marcus, your father would be proud of you. After she hung up, Marcus sat alone in the library for a long time. He thought about his grandfather Victor, about his great-grandfather Edmund, about the choices they had made and the prices others had paid. He thought about Daniel, the brother erased from history for choosing love over an empire. And he thought about Maya Sullivan, a waitress fighting for her dying mother, a woman who had nothing but truth and courage, while he had everything except those two things. He picked up the eagle ring on his finger, looked at it closely for the first time in years. It was beautiful, expertly crafted, a symbol meant to represent rising from ashes. But now he saw it differently. It was a symbol of theft, of a partnership that had been destroyed, of two halves that were meant to be whole but had been violently torn apart. If there is another ring, he said quietly, then everything I know is wrong. And everything I am was stolen from someone else. The meeting was arranged for Thursday evening, neutral ground, a private conference room in Catherine Stone's law office. The building was modern, all glass and steel, located in downtown Denver with a view of the mountains in the distance. Catherine had ordered it kept confidential. No assistants, no witnesses. Just the people directly involved in this tangled history. Marcus arrived first. He was early, unable to stay still in his penthouse. He wore a suit but had dispensed with the tie. There was no need for armor here, no need for the trappings of power. He was here to face truth, and truth did not care about expensive fabric. Catherine met him in the lobby. She was dressed in her usual impeccable style, but her expression was softer than he was used to seeing in professional settings. "How are you holding up?" "I am not." Marcus said it simply. "I have not slept in 3 days. I feel like I am standing on the edge of a cliff." "You are." Catherine touched his arm briefly. "But sometimes we need to jump. That is the only way to find out if we can fly or if we have been weighed down by lies all along." They took the elevator to the 15th floor. The conference room was large but felt intimate. A long table, comfortable chairs, dim lighting that was easier on tired eyes. Catherine had set out water and coffee. Marcus noticed she had also placed a box of tissues on the table. She was thinking ahead. This was going to be emotional. "They are here." Catherine checked her phone. "Should I bring them up?" Marcus took a breath. "Yes." 5 minutes later, the door opened. Maya Sullivan entered first. She was not wearing her diner uniform. She had on jeans and a simple sweater. Her dark hair was pulled back. She looked tired and wary and absolutely determined. Behind her came a woman in a wheelchair, Sarah Sullivan. Marcus had seen the photograph Catherine had shown him, but seeing her in person was different. She was thin, painfully so, with the translucent skin of the very ill. But her eyes were sharp and bright and utterly unafraid. Following them was another woman, Asian American, late 20s, with an expression that said she was here to protect her friend and would fight anyone who tried to hurt her. Catherine made the introductions. "Maya Sullivan, Sarah Sullivan. This is Jenny Chen, a friend of the family." Marcus stood. He did not know what the protocol was for meeting the family your grandfather had destroyed. There was no etiquette book for this. He settled on honesty. "Thank you for coming. I know this is difficult." Sarah wheeled herself closer to the table. Maya helped her position the chair. Then Sarah looked directly at Marcus. Her gaze was steady. "You look like him, like your grandfather. Victor, same eyes, same bearing. I am sorry." Marcus did not know what else to say. "Do not apologize to me yet." Sarah's voice was stronger than her body. "You have not heard everything I have to say. Save your apologies for after, if you still feel like giving them." They sat. Catherine poured water for everyone. The silence stretched. Then Maya spoke. Her voice was quiet but clear. "My mother told me everything. About what your grandfather did to ours. About the threats, the stolen patent, the $50,000 that bought my grandfather's silence and killed his spirit." Marcus nodded. "I read the files, the surveillance reports, the memos, all of it." He looked at Sarah. "I am horrified by what Victor Ashford did to your family. There is no excuse, no justification. It was theft. It was intimidation. It was evil." Sarah's expression did not change. "And what are you prepared to do about it?" The question hung in the air. Marcus had thought about this constantly for 3 days. What could he do? How could he possibly make restitution for what his grandfather had done? How do you repay a stolen life? "I paid your medical bills." He started there. "All of them. $280,000. I did it anonymously because I did not want you to feel obligated to me. But I wanted you to know now. I wanted you to know that I understand my family's debt to yours." Sarah's eyes narrowed. "And you think that clears the ledger? A few $100,000 against what was stolen from my father? Against the billions your family built on his work?" "No." Marcus leaned forward. "I do not think it even begins to clear the ledger. That is why I am here, to ask what justice looks like to you. What would be enough?" Maya spoke up. "We do not want money, not just money. We want the truth told. We want my grandfather's name cleared. We want public acknowledgement of what was done. That will destroy the company's reputation." Marcus said it not as a refusal, but as a statement of fact. "Good." Sarah's voice was cold. "Your company's reputation is built on a lie, on my father's stolen dreams. It deserves to be destroyed." There was fire in her words, righteous anger that had been banked for 50 years. Marcus found himself respecting her for it. This was not a woman looking for a handout. This was a woman looking for justice, and justice was a hell of a lot more expensive than money. "There is something else." Marcus pulled out the photographs he had found, the journal entries. He spread them on the table. I found these in my great-grandfather's papers. They mentioned Daniel Ashford, the brother who was supposedly cast out for betrayal. Sarah's expression changed. She leaned forward, eyes scanning the pages. Daniel. She said the name like a prayer. My grandmother spoke of him, rarely, and only in whispers. What did she say? Marcus asked. That he was a good man. Sarah's voice softened. That he had been wronged by powerful people. That he gave her something that was meant to be proof. The ring. Maya said it. The eagle ring. That is what he gave her, is it not? Sarah nodded slowly. She reached into her bag and pulled out the velvet box, set it on the table, opened it. The eagle ring inside caught the light, identical to the one on Marcus's finger, two halves of a whole, finally in the same room after a century apart. Marcus stared. Seeing the photograph had been one thing. Seeing the actual ring, the physical proof that everything he thought he knew was wrong, was entirely different. May I? Sarah nodded. He reached out, picked up the ring. The weight was familiar, the craftsmanship identical. He held it up next to his own. The eagles could have been cast from the same mold. The sapphire eyes gleamed with the same cold fire. How? His voice was barely a whisper. How is this possible? Catherine cleared her throat. She had been silent until now, letting the moment play out. I found something. In my research, she pulled out a folder. Photocopies of old documents. These are from the archives of a Parisian jewelry house, Dubois and Associates. They went out of business in 1953, but their records were acquired by another firm. She spread the papers on the table. In 1922, your great-grandfather, Edmund Ashford, commissioned 2 eagle signet rings for Michel Dubois. 2, not 1. The entry is clear, both rings identical. Payment was significant, $15,000, which in today's money would be over $200,000. 2 rings. Marcus felt the world tilting. He was always told it was one, a unique piece, a symbol of the Ashford ascension. Catherine pointed to a notation in the margin. It was in French. She had provided a translation. One for the builder, one for the guardian of the soul. May they fly together. That is what the artisan wrote. It was commissioned as a pair, a partnership. Marcus looked at Sarah, at the ring in his hand that belonged to her family. Guardian of the soul. Daniel was meant to be the guardian while Edmund built. They were supposed to work together. Sarah's expression was unreadable. My grandmother's name was Helen Morrison. She worked as a housekeeper at the Ashford estate. She and Daniel fell in love. Your great-grandfather found out. He gave Daniel an ultimatum. Give her up or be disowned. And Daniel chose her. Marcus could see it now. The family story was not a story of betrayal. It was a story of a man who chose love over legacy, who walked away from billions to marry a woman his family deemed unacceptable. He gave Helen the ring before he left. Sarah continued, told her it was proof that not all Ashfords were monsters, that some of them still had souls. Helen treasured it, gave it to her son, my grandfather Thomas, before she died. Thomas gave it to me, and I have kept it for 50 years, waiting for the right moment. This moment, Maya said quietly. This is the moment Grandpa Thomas was waiting for. The room fell silent. Outside, the city lights were coming on, the Denver skyline glowing against the darkening mountains. Inside this room, a truth 100 years in the making was finally being spoken aloud. Marcus set the ring carefully back in its velvet box. There is more. There has to be. Why would Victor go after Thomas specifically? Why target him? Sarah and Maya exchanged glances. There was something there, some knowledge they were holding back. Finally, Sarah spoke. Because Thomas Garrett was not just some random engineer Victor decided to steal from. He was Daniel's son. My grandfather was Daniel Ashford's child, which makes me Daniel's granddaughter. And Maya, she looked at her daughter. Maya is Daniel Ashford's great-granddaughter. The words landed like an earthquake. Marcus actually stood up, his chair scraping back. That is impossible. Sarah smiled. It was not a kind smile. Is it? Daniel and Helen married, had a child, raised him in obscurity, gave him Helen's maiden name to protect him. But Thomas inherited Daniel's brilliance, his gift for engineering. And when Thomas started making waves in the industry, when his innovations started attracting attention, Victor heard about it, recognized the talent, maybe even recognized some family resemblance, and he realized the threat. The threat. Marcus could see it now with horrible clarity. Thomas Garrett was not just a brilliant engineer, he was Daniel's heir. If the truth ever came out, if Thomas's connection to the Ashford family became known, it would raise questions. Questions about inheritance, about the legitimacy of Edmund's sons versus Daniel's, about who had the true claim to the Ashford legacy. So Victor eliminated him, not with violence, but with threats and theft and silence. He made sure Thomas could never become powerful enough to challenge the official Ashford line. He stole Thomas's work to keep him poor, threatened his family to keep him silent, and let him die broken, never knowing that he was destroying the true Ashford heir. You are the heir. Marcus looked at Maya. His mind was reeling. Not me. You. Daniel was the older brother. His line has precedence. You should own Ashford Industries, not me. Maya held up her hands. I do not want it. I do not want any of it. I just want my mother to live long enough to see justice. I want my grandfather's name cleared. I want the truth told. But the board will not see it that way. Catherine's voice was grim. If this becomes public, if your bloodline becomes known, there will be lawsuits, challenges to ownership. The company will be torn apart in litigation that could last decades. Then let it be torn apart. Sarah's voice was fierce. Better torn apart by truth than held together by lies. Marcus sat back down. He felt exhausted, unmoored. Everything he had believed about his family, about his right to lead Ashford Industries, about his very identity, was dissolving. But beneath the exhaustion, there was something else. Something that felt almost like relief. The truth was terrible, but it was also liberating. I will help you, he said it quietly. Whatever you need, documents, testimony, access to records. I will help you prove everything. And I will stand beside you when you go public. Sarah studied him for a long moment. Why? What do you gain from this? Nothing. Marcus met her gaze. I lose everything. My position, my reputation, probably the company itself. But I gain something too. I gain the knowledge that I did the right thing. Finally. That I chose integrity over comfort. Just like Daniel did. The meeting continued for another 2 hours. They made plans. Catherine would prepare the documentation. Maya would work on organizing the evidence. Sarah would record her testimony while she still had the strength. And Marcus would start preparing for the war that would come when they went public. As they were leaving, Sarah wheeled herself close to Marcus. She looked up at him, and for the first time, her expression was not hard. You know, she said quietly, you do look like Victor. But you are not him. I can see that now. You have a chance to be what Daniel was, to be the guardian of the soul instead of just the builder of empires. Do not waste it. I will not, Marcus promised. I swear to you, I will not. After they left, Marcus stood alone in the conference room. Catherine was packing up the files. She glanced at him. You know Richard will find out. He has spies in the company, in the board. He will move against you the moment he realizes what you are planning. Let him. Marcus's voice was steady. I am done playing games. I am done protecting lies. Whatever comes, I will face it. Even if it costs you everything? Especially then. Catherine nodded. Then we move forward. Truth over comfort. Justice over reputation. She smiled slightly. Daniel Ashford would be proud. I hope so. Marcus looked at the ring on his finger. Because I am about to burn down everything his brother built. And I am going to do it in his name. The next morning, Sarah was back in the hospital. The stress of the meeting had taken its toll. Her oxygen levels had dropped. The nurses were worried. Maya sat beside her bed, holding her hand, terrified that they had pushed too hard too fast. But Sarah was smiling. Her eyes were closed, but she was smiling. We did it, she whispered. We told them. We looked them in the eye, and we told them the truth. You need to rest, Mom. Maya's voice was tight with fear. Please, conserve your strength. Sarah opened her eyes. They were bright, feverish. Maya, I need you to promise me something. If I do not make it through this, if the cancer takes me before we finish, promise me you will see it through. Mom, do not talk like that. Promise me. Sarah's grip tightened. Promise me you will fight, that you will make them acknowledge what they did, that Daniel's name will be cleared, that Thomas's name will be cleared, that our family will finally be seen. Tears streamed down Maya's face. I promise. I swear I will. Good. Sarah relaxed. That is all I needed to hear. She closed her eyes again. Now I can rest. Maya sat with her through the afternoon, watching her mother's chest rise and fall, listening to the monitors, praying to a God she was not sure she believed in that her mother would have enough time. Just enough time to see justice done. Her phone buzzed. A text from Marcus. I found something else. Something about Daniel that changes everything. Can you meet tomorrow? Maya looked at her mother's sleeping face. Typed back. Yes. Where? My office. 11 a.m. Come alone if you can. This is big. The next morning, Maya rode the elevator to the 80th floor of Ashford Tower, the glass and steel monument to her family's destroyer. The receptionist directed her to Marcus's office. The door was open. He was standing by the window, looking out at the city. When he heard her enter, he turned. He looked like he had not slept. Thank you for coming. He gestured to a chair. Please, sit. This is going to take a while. He pulled out a laptop, opened it. On the screen was a scanned image of an old photograph, black and white, faded. Two young men standing side by side, both in suits, both looking serious. One was clearly Edmund Ashford. Maya had seen enough photographs to recognize him. The other had kind eyes, a gentle smile. He looked like someone who read poetry and cared about people. Daniel. Marcus pointed. Daniel Owen Ashford, born 1905. That makes him the older brother, the true heir to the Ashford fortune. He paused, and his middle name was Owen. Maya felt her breath catch. Owen, like your grandfather. Marcus nodded. Thomas Garrett's middle name was Owen, but I do not think it was a coincidence. I think when Daniel left the family, when he married Helen, he gave their son his own middle name as a first name, to honor who he had been before the family erased him. So my grandfather was Thomas Owen Garrett, named after Daniel Owen Ashford. Maya's voice was barely audible. He carried the name all along. The proof was always there. There is more. Marcus pulled up another document. A letter. Handwritten. The ink faded, but still legible. This is from Daniel to Thomas. Dated 1974, the year Thomas died. He started reading aloud. My son, if you are reading this, I am gone. But you deserve to know the truth of who you are. I was born Daniel Owen Ashford, first son of Edmund Ashford. I was meant to inherit an empire, but I chose love instead. I chose your mother, and I have never regretted that choice. Marcus's voice roughened as he continued, but I need you to know this. My brother Victor is dangerous. He will see your talent as a threat. If he ever discovers you exist, if he ever realizes you are my son, he will destroy you to protect his claim. Keep the ring hidden. Keep your identity hidden. Live your life in obscurity. It is the only way to stay safe. He looked up at Maya. Daniel knew. He predicted exactly what would happen. And it happened anyway. Maya felt rage and sorrow warring in her chest. He tried to protect his son, and they destroyed him anyway. Yes. Marcus closed the laptop. Your grandfather did everything right, stayed hidden, changed his name, worked in obscurity, but his genius could not be hidden forever. And when it emerged, when Victor learned about Thomas Garrett, the brilliant engineer, he must have investigated, must have realized who Thomas really was, and decided to eliminate the threat. Not with murder, Maya said bitterly. With something worse, with theft and threats and making him live with the knowledge of what had been stolen. With forcing him to be silent about his own identity, his own heritage. Marcus sat down heavily. I am going to make this right. I do not know how yet, but I am going to find a way. Your family will be acknowledged. Daniel's legacy will be restored, and the truth will be told. All of it. Maya looked at him, saw the exhaustion in his face, the determination, the guilt. He was a good man trapped in a bad legacy, and he was trying, genuinely trying, to break free. That is dangerous. Richard will fight you. You said so yourself. I know. The board will fight you. I know. You could lose everything. I know. Marcus met her gaze. But what is everything worth if it is built on lies? My grandfather destroyed your grandfather to protect his claim. I will not do the same. I will not protect a lie just because it is comfortable. Maya stood, held out her hand. Then we are allies. Truly. Not just because of guilt or obligation, but because it is right. Marcus took her hand, shook it firmly. Allies. And when this is over, when the truth is out and the dust has settled, I hope we can be more than that. I hope we can be friends. So do I. Maya surprised herself by meaning it. As she left his office, riding the elevator back down to street level, she thought about the rings, the two eagles, separated for a century, about to be reunited in the fight for truth. She thought about Daniel choosing love, about Thomas carrying his father's name as a secret burden, about her mother fighting cancer and injustice at the same time, about Marcus throwing away an empire to do what was right. And she thought about herself, Maya Sullivan, waitress, daughter, granddaughter of a stolen legacy, about to step into a battle that would define the rest of her life. She pulled out her phone, called Jenny. You free tonight? I need to tell you something big. Always. Jenny's voice was warm. What is up? Maya smiled. It turned out I am not just a waitress after all. I am an Ashford, the real Ashford heir, and we are about to go to war. Jenny's response was immediate. Then I am bringing reinforcements, because nobody messes with my girl, nobody. And for the first time in weeks, Maya felt something other than fear or rage or exhaustion. She felt hope, fragile, uncertain. But there, the truth was coming, and with it the chance for justice. Finally, the war was beginning. But this time, the weapons were not money or power or threats. They were documents and testimony, and the stubborn courage of people who refused to stay silent anymore. People who chose truth over comfort, who chose integrity over empire. People like Daniel had been, and people like Maya was becoming. The eagle was preparing to rise. Some truths are too heavy to carry alone. They require witnesses. They demand testimony. And sometimes, the most powerful truth is not about what was stolen, but about what was freely given. About choices made when the cost was everything. About love that refused to be bought or silenced or forgotten. Daniel Ashford chose love over an empire. That choice echoed through a century, through generations, through the lives of people who never knew his name. But the echo was about to become a roar. The law offices of Catherine Stone occupied the 23rd floor of a building that had been designed to impress. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered a panoramic view of Denver stretching toward the mountains. But on this gray Thursday morning, no one was looking at the view. All eyes were on the screen that dominated the conference room wall. Catherine had arranged everything with her usual meticulous care. The high-resolution images from the Parisian archives, the translation software, the coffee and water precisely placed. But there was something else in the room now, an electricity, a sense that they were about to open a door that had been locked for 100 years. Sarah Sullivan sat in her wheelchair near the screen, oxygen tube in her nose, but her eyes bright with anticipation. Maya stood behind her, one hand on her mother's shoulder. Marcus Ashford sat across from them, his usual composure cracked, replaced by something raw. Jenny Chen had taken up a position by the door, arms crossed, ready to protect her friend from whatever truths were about to emerge. Catherine clicked the remote. The first image appeared, a page from a leather-bound ledger. The paper yellowed with age, the handwriting elegant and spidery, French words in fading ink. The scanned resolution was so high you could see the texture of the paper, the slight wavering of the pen strokes, the humanity of the hand that had written these words in 1922. This is from the archives of Dubois and Associates. Catherine's voice was steady, professional, but Maya could hear the excitement beneath. Michel Dubois was one of the finest jewelers in Paris between 1900 and 1930. She specialized in custom work for wealthy Americans. The Ashfords were among her best clients. She zoomed in on a particular entry. The date was clear. April 7th, 1922. Client, Edmund Ashford. Commission, 2 eagle signet rings. Gold, 18 karat. sapphires, 2 stones, matched pair, 3.5 carats each. Design specifications follow. Payment, $15,000. 2 rings. Marcus said it quietly, as if speaking too loudly would make it disappear. I was always told there was only one, that it was unique, the symbol of our family's singular vision. Catherine scrolled down to the artisan's notes. These were in the margin, written in a different hand, more flowing, more artistic. She had prepared a translation. It read, "Un pour le bâtisseur, un pour le gardien de l'âme, qu'ils volent ensemble." Sarah leaned forward. Her French was rusty, but still functional. One for the builder, one for the guardian of the soul. May they fly together. Her voice caught. It was meant to be a partnership, not a conquest. A partnership. Edmund commissioned these for himself and his brother. Catherine brought up another image, a formal portrait, 2 young men in suits, standing side by side in a photographer's studio. Both had the Ashford features, the strong jaw, the direct gaze. But there was a difference. Edmund looked ambitious, hungry. Daniel looked thoughtful, almost gentle, like a man who read poetry in his spare time, like a man who cared more about ideas than balance sheets. Marcus stared at the photo. He had never seen this image before. It was not in any of the family archives, not in any of the official histories. Daniel had been so thoroughly erased that even his photographs had been removed. I look more like him than like Edmund. Marcus's voice was barely audible. I look like Daniel. Sarah turned to look at him. For a moment something passed between them, recognition, the acknowledgement that blood ran in strange patterns, that sometimes the traits that matter most skip generations, that Marcus Ashford might have been born into Edmund's line but carried Daniel's soul. There is more. Catherine's fingers moved across the keyboard. Much more. And you need to see all of it, because the story we thought we knew is not the story at all. She brought up another document. This one was from 1945, an addendum to the original commission, written in English by a different clerk. Client Daniel Ashford, formerly of Denver, Colorado, requests modification to ring purchased 1922. Inscription to be added to interior band. Name, Owen. Client states he is no longer an Ashford. He is reborn. Payment $50. Owen, Maya whispered. He inscribed Owen into his ring in 1945, before my grandfather was born. Catherine nodded. At first I thought it might be a memorial, perhaps to Edmund's father-in-law who died in 1944. But then I dug deeper. She pulled up a birth certificate. Daniel Owen Ashford, born October 14th, 1905. Owen was his middle name. He was reclaiming it. Marcus understood suddenly. When he left the family, when he married Helen, he could not use the Ashford name, so he used his middle name. He became Daniel Owen. And later, when they had a son, they gave that son the name as well. Thomas Owen Garrett. The Owen was always there. Always. A thread connecting them across generations. Sarah's hands were shaking. She reached into the bag hanging from her wheelchair and pulled out a small bundle. Letters tied with a faded blue ribbon. These were my grandmother Helen's. She kept them hidden. My mother found them after Helen died, gave them to me years later. I have never shown them to anyone. She untied the ribbon with trembling fingers. The paper was fragile, the ink faded, but the words were still legible, handwritten, personal. The intimate correspondence of 2 people who loved each other when the world said they should not. May I? Sarah held up the first letter. I would like to read it aloud, so you understand what was lost, what your family destroyed, Mr. Ashford. Marcus nodded. He could not speak. Sarah unfolded the letter. Her voice was soft but steady. This is from Helen to Daniel, dated April 1940. My dearest Daniel, your father came to see me today. He told me I was not suitable, that I was a servant, nothing more, and that I would ruin your life if you persisted in this foolishness. He offered me money, $5,000 to leave Denver and never contact you again. Sarah paused, looked up. That was a fortune in 1940, more than most people saw in a lifetime. Helen could have taken it, could have disappeared, but listen to what she said next. She continued reading. I told him that love does not have a price, that I would rather have 1 year with you in poverty than a lifetime of comfort without you. He did not understand. He looked at me as if I were speaking a foreign language. I realized then that he has never loved. Not truly. He has possessed. He has acquired. But he has never loved. Maya felt tears on her cheeks. The raw honesty of the words. The courage it took to write them. To speak truth to power. Sarah unfolded another letter. This is Daniel's response, dated 2 days later. My beloved Helen, today I stood before my father and my brother, and I chose you. Edmund called me a fool, said I was throwing away my birthright for a woman who would leave me when the money ran out. I told him you had already been offered money and refused it. That silenced him, but not for long. He gave me an ultimatum: give you up or be disowned, struck from the family records, erased. The room was absolutely silent except for Sarah's voice, steady and clear despite the tears streaming down her face. I chose erasure. I chose you. And I would make that choice 1,000 times over, because you have given me something my family never could. You have given me a reason to be more than an Ashford. You have given me the chance to be a man who loves freely, who chooses joy over duty, who builds a life instead of an empire. Sarah set the letter down gently. They eloped 3 days later. Daniel took nothing but the ring and the clothes on his back. Helen had nothing. They started with nothing, but they had each other. Another letter, this one from 1946. Helen's handwriting, shakier now, hurried. Our son was born today. We named him Thomas Owen Garrett. Thomas for my father, Owen for Daniel's true name. Garrett was my mother's maiden name. We give him nothing of the Ashford legacy except Daniel's integrity. I pray it is enough. Marcus had his head in his hands. He was crying. Not the silent tears of grief, but the deep, wrenching sobs of a man whose entire foundation had crumbled. They had what I have never had, what my family has never had. They had love, real love, the kind that costs everything and gives back more. Jenny moved closer to Maya, whispered, "Is he okay?" Maya watched Marcus, saw him breaking, saw him being remade. He is better than okay. He is becoming human. Catherine let the moment stretch. Then she spoke gently. There is one more letter. This one is from 1974. Daniel to Thomas. It was written just before Daniel died. Sarah, may I? Sarah nodded. Please. Catherine read from her screen, her voice measured and clear. My son, if you are reading this, I am gone. I have lived a good life. Not a wealthy life, not a powerful life, but a good one. I have loved your mother for 34 years. I have watched you grow into a man of integrity and brilliance. I have built nothing that will last beyond my lifetime except you. And that is enough. She paused. But I need you to know the truth. I was born Daniel Owen Ashford. I was the firstborn son of Edmund Ashford. I was meant to inherit an empire. I walked away from it for love, and I have never, not once, regretted that choice. Marcus looked up, his face ravaged. Daniel was the older brother. He was the rightful heir. Catherine nodded. By the laws of primogeniture, yes. He should have inherited everything. Edmund was the younger son. But when Daniel left, Edmund claimed it all, claimed Daniel had betrayed the family, rewrote the history. And the empire passed to Edmund's line, to Victor, to Marcus's father, to Marcus. Everything I have is stolen, Marcus said it flatly. Not just the patents, not just Thomas's work. Everything. The company should have gone to Daniel's line, to Thomas, to Sarah, to Maya. He looked at Maya. You are the rightful heir to Ashford Industries, not me. Maya shook her head. I do not want it. I never wanted it. I just want the truth told. But the board will not see it that way. Catherine's voice was grim. When this becomes public, when your bloodline is revealed, there will be chaos, lawsuits, challenges to ownership. The company could be torn apart. Then let it be torn apart. Sarah's voice was fierce. Better destroyed by truth than preserved by lies. There was a long silence. Then Marcus spoke. His voice was hoarse but determined. I am going to make this right. I do not know how yet, but I am going to find a way to honor Daniel's legacy, to restore Thomas's name, to acknowledge Sarah and Maya as the true heirs, whatever it costs, whatever it takes. Jenny spoke up from her position by the door. That is going to be expensive. You will lose everything. Marcus stood, walked to the window, looked out at the city his family had helped build. I have been thinking about Daniel, about his choice. He gave up billions for love, for integrity, for the chance to be his own man instead of his family's legacy. He turned back to face them. What did he lose? Money? Power? The Ashford name? And what did he gain? He gestured to the letters spread across the table. He gained 34 years with the woman he loved. He gained a son. He gained a life lived on his own terms. He gained the ability to look at himself in the mirror and know he had chosen what mattered. He paused. I have billions. I have power. I have the Ashford name. And I am miserable. I am empty. I am exactly what Daniel was smart enough not to be. Maya stood, walked to stand beside him at the window. They looked out at the city together. Two heirs to the same legacy, divided by a century of lies, united by the choice to value truth over comfort. My mother is dying. Maya's voice was quiet. She has maybe 6 months, maybe less. She has carried this secret for 50 years. She has lived in fear, in silence. I want her to spend her last months in truth, in justice, even if it costs me everything I might inherit, even if it means I go back to being just a waitress. It is worth it. You were never just a waitress. Marcus said it with conviction. You were always Daniel's great-granddaughter. You were always the guardian of a truth too important to stay buried. You were always more than the Ashfords allowed you to be. Their eyes met. For a moment, something passed between them. Not attraction, not yet. Something deeper. Recognition. The acknowledgement that they were both prisoners of a history they did not choose, both fighting to break free, both willing to pay the price. The moment was interrupted by Sarah's weak voice. There is something else you need to see. She pulled out one more letter. This one was different, older. The paper was almost translucent with age. This is from Edmund to Daniel, written in 1944, the year Edmund was dying. She handed it to Catherine. Would you read it? I cannot. Not this one. Catherine unfolded it carefully. The handwriting was shaky, obviously written by a man in failing health. She began to read. Brother, I am dying. The doctors give me weeks, perhaps days. Father has been gone for 3 months. He asked for you every day at the end, called your name, wept because you would not come. I told him you were unreachable. I told him it was too late. But the truth, Daniel, the truth is I know where you are. I have known for years. I have had men keeping track of you. Not to threaten you, not to harm you, simply to know. Catherine's voice wavered slightly. I see the reports. You work in a factory. You live in a small house. You have a wife and a son. You are by all accounts happy. Happier than I have ever been. Happier than Father was. Happier than anyone in our family has ever been. I was wrong. There, I have said it. I was wrong to make you choose. Wrong to cast you out. Wrong to let Father die without seeing you. I let my pride and my ambition poison something that should have been sacred. You were my brother. You were my better half. The guardian while I built. And I threw that away because I could not accept that you valued love over legacy. The room was absolutely still. Catherine continued, her voice thick with emotion. I am sending this letter even though I know you will never respond. I do not deserve your forgiveness. I do not even ask for it. I simply need you to know that I see now what you saw then. That empires are dust, that names fade, that the only things that last are the choices we make about what we value. You chose love. I chose power. And I am dying alone in a mansion filled with everything I ever wanted and nothing that matters. If you have a son, tell him about me, not the lie I will leave behind, not the story of betrayal and theft. Tell him the truth, that I was a man who let fear rule me, who chose legacy over brother, who built something impressive and empty. Tell him so he does not make my mistakes. Catherine set the letter down. It was never sent. There is no evidence Daniel ever saw it. Edmund wrote it, sealed it, and apparently hid it in his private papers. A confession meant for no one, or perhaps meant for history, for this moment. Marcus sank back into his chair. He tried to reconcile. Edmund tried to bring Daniel back, but he died before he could send it. Or he was too afraid to send it. Sarah's voice was hard, afraid that Daniel would reject him, that he would have to face the consequences of his choices while he was still alive. Easier to write a letter and hide it, to feel like he tried without actually risking anything. Catherine nodded, and then Victor found it, or knew about it. Either way, he made sure the reconciliation never happened, made sure Daniel stayed erased, because a living Daniel, a Daniel who might reconcile with the family, would threaten Victor's claim, would raise questions about inheritance, about legitimacy. So when Thomas emerged, Maya understood. When my grandfather started making a name for himself as an engineer, when his brilliance started attracting attention, Victor must have investigated, must have realized who Thomas really was. Daniel's son, the heir. And he destroyed him. Marcus finished, not with violence, but with threats and theft and systematic degradation. He made sure Thomas could never rise, never claim his rightful place. He stole Thomas's work and used it to build the very empire that should have been Thomas's by blood. He turned the knife and smiled while doing it. The weight of it settled over the room. A century of lies, a century of theft, a century of one branch of the family systematically erasing and exploiting the other, all to protect a claim that was never legitimate to begin with. "What do we do now?" Jenny asked. She had been silent throughout, absorbing everything. Her question was simple, but it cut to the heart of things. How do you fight a lie that has been alive longer than anyone in this room? We tell the truth. Sarah said it with finality. All of it, publicly. We bring these letters, these documents. We stand in front of cameras and we say, this is what the Ashford family did. This is what they stole. This is who they destroyed. And we dare them to deny it. That will start a war, Catherine warned. Richard will fight. The board will fight. They will attack your credibility. They will claim you are lying for money. They will make it ugly. Let them. Sarah's eyes were fierce. I am dying anyway. What can they take from me that cancer has not already claimed? My reputation. I have lived in poverty and silence for 50 years. I have no reputation to lose. My life, it is already being taken. The only thing I have left is the truth, and I will not die without speaking it. Marcus leaned forward. I will stand with you. At every press conference, every deposition, every public appearance, I will be there. And I will confirm everything. The documents are real, the letters are real, the theft happened, and I will call for a full independent investigation into Ashford Industries going back to 1920. That will destroy the company. Catherine said it gently. I know. Marcus met her gaze. And maybe it should be destroyed. Maybe something built on this much theft and pain should not stand. Maybe we need to tear it down and build something new, something clean, something that honors Daniel instead of betraying him. There was another long silence. Then Maya spoke. When do we do this? When do we go public? Sarah looked at Catherine. How long to prepare all the evidence? To organize it so it cannot be dismissed or hidden? 2 weeks. Catherine was already mentally calculating. 2 weeks to compile everything, to verify every document, to create a timeline that is ironclad. And then she paused. The Ashford Foundation has its annual gala in 3 weeks. 500 guests, media coverage, board members, city leaders, everyone who matters will be there. Perfect. Sarah's smile was sharp. We tell them there, in front of everyone, in public where they cannot silence us, where the cameras will capture every word, where the truth will be recorded and distributed before they can spin it. You want to confront them at their own event? Jenny looked impressed. That is bold. That is justice, Sarah corrected. They built their empire on my father's stolen work. They celebrated that empire at galas and parties while my father died in poverty. So yes, we will crash their party. And we will tell the truth while they are forced to listen. Marcus nodded slowly. I can make sure you are on the guest list. All of you. I can even arrange for you to speak if you want. I am still the CEO. For now. I still have that power. Then use it. Sarah leaned back in her wheelchair. Suddenly, she looked exhausted. The fire that had sustained her through the meeting was banking. Maya noticed immediately, moved to her side. Mom, you need to rest. I am fine, Sarah protested, but her voice was thin. You are not fine. Maya's tone was firm. You are pushing yourself too hard. We have a plan. We have allies. Now you need to conserve your strength. 3 weeks is a long time when you are fighting cancer. Sarah looked like she wanted to argue. Then she simply nodded. Tired. So tired. Maya looked at Marcus. Can you help me get her to the car? The hospital is waiting. They want to adjust her medications. Of course. Marcus moved immediately. Together, he and Maya carefully maneuvered the wheelchair. Jenny held the door. Catherine gathered the letters and documents, promising to scan everything, to create backups, to ensure that no matter what happened, the evidence would survive. As they waited for the elevator, Sarah reached up and took Marcus's hand. Her grip was weak, but her gaze was steady. You are a good man. You did not choose your family. You did not choose their sins, but you are choosing how you respond to them. That is what matters. That is what Daniel would want. Marcus's throat was tight. I will not let you down, I promise. I know. Sarah's smile was genuine. Tired, but genuine. You remind me of him. Of Daniel. Not in looks. In something deeper. In the willingness to choose what is right even when it costs everything. That is rare. Do not lose it. The elevator arrived. They got Sarah inside. The doors closed. Marcus stood in the hallway, Catherine beside him. He felt hollowed out. Everything he thought he knew had been stripped away. But beneath the emptiness, there was something else. Something that felt almost like freedom. I have to tell my father, Marcus said quietly. He is in Paris, living off the family money, pretending he does not know where it came from. But he knew. Edmund told Victor. Victor told my father. And my father told me just enough to make me complicit. Catherine put a hand on his arm. Will he support you? Marcus thought about the man who had abdicated responsibility, who had fled to Europe to avoid facing what his family had done. I do not know. But I have to give him the chance. The same chance Edmund never gave Daniel. Then call him. Catherine's voice was gentle. Give him that chance. And if he refuses, if he chooses comfort over truth, then at least you will know you tried. That night, Marcus stood in his penthouse, phone in hand, looking out at the glittering city. He dialed a number he called perhaps twice a year. The phone rang 4 times. Then his father's voice, slightly slurred with wine and distance. Marcus, to what do I owe this unexpected pleasure? I need to tell you something, and I need you to listen, all the way through. Can you do that? There was a pause. Then his father's voice, suddenly sober. This is about the company, is it not? About what we did. About what you knew and let happen. Marcus kept his voice level. About Daniel. About Thomas Garrett. About a century of theft and lies. It is all coming out, all of it. And I am the one telling it. His father was silent for a long time. Then quietly. I wondered when this day would come. When someone would finally be brave enough or foolish enough to speak the truth. I thought I would be dead before it happened. Are you angry? No. His father's voice was sad. I am relieved. I have been carrying this for 40 years, since your grandfather told me on his deathbed. Told me what he had done, what Edmund had done, what our entire legacy was built on. I have been a coward, Marcus. I ran to Europe. I let you take the company. I pretended I did not know, but I knew, and I did nothing. You can do something now, Marcus said. You can support me. You can confirm the truth. You can help me make this right. Another long silence. Then his father spoke, and there were tears in his voice. Your mother would be proud of you. She always said you had integrity, that you were better than the rest of us. I did not believe her. I thought the Ashford legacy would corrupt you like it corrupted me. But she was right. You are better. Will you help me? Yes. His father's voice was firm now. Yes. I will come back to Denver. I will stand with you. I will confirm everything. And Marcus, when this is over, when the company is gone and the name is ruined, I want you to know something. I am proud of you. I should have said it years ago, but I am saying it now. I am proud. Marcus felt something break loose in his chest, something that had been tight for as long as he could remember. Thank you. It was all he could manage. Good. After the call ended, he stood at the window for a long time. His father was coming back. After 20 years of exile, of running from his family's sins, he was coming back to face them. It did not erase the years of cowardice, but it was something. A start. His phone buzzed. A text from Maya. Mom is stable. They adjusted her meds. She is sleeping now. But before she went under, she told me to tell you something. She said Daniel would have liked you. And coming from her, that is the highest praise she can give. Marcus smiled through his tears, texted back, "Tell her I am trying to be worthy of it." 3 dots appeared. Then, "You already are." He looked at the ring on his finger, the eagle with its sapphire eye. One for the builder, one for the guardian of the soul. For a century, the Ashfords had been building without a guardian, building empires without souls. But that was about to change. In 3 weeks, the truth would come out, the empire would fall, and perhaps from the ashes, something better could rise, something that honored Daniel instead of erasing him, something that chose integrity over wealth, something that proved, finally, that love and truth were worth more than all the money in the world. The eagle was preparing to fly, and this time it would not fly alone. There is a moment before every battle when the outcome is still uncertain, when plans have been made but not yet tested, when courage is still untried, when the cost is theoretical rather than real. That moment is both terrifying and clarifying. It strips away everything except what matters, and it forces you to decide who you are going to be when the storm finally breaks. For Marcus Ashford, that moment came when he realized that choosing truth meant losing everything he had spent his life building. For Sarah Sullivan, it came when she understood that her final act on this earth would be to stand before the people who destroyed her father and refuse to be silent. For Maya, it came when she had to choose between protecting her mother and honoring her mother's choice to fight. The storm was gathering, and there would be no shelter from what was coming. The first shot was fired 3 days after the meeting in Catherine Stone's office. It came in the form of an article in the Denver Business Journal. The headline read, "Ashford CEO Under Fire, Family Crisis or Mental Breakdown." Marcus read it on his phone while standing in his office, the morning sun casting long shadows across the polished floor. The article was poison disguised as journalism. Sources close to the Ashford family suggest that Marcus Ashford has become obsessed with a conspiracy theory about his grandfather. Board members express concern about his judgment. One anonymous executive stated that Ashford has been meeting secretly with a woman claiming to be a long-lost heir, raising questions about his mental state and fitness to lead. The article never mentioned Maya or Sarah by name, but it did not need to. The implication was clear. Marcus was unstable, delusional, possibly being manipulated by opportunists. And the board was watching. His phone rang. "Catherine, have you seen it?" "Reading it now." Marcus kept his voice level. "Richard's work, obviously." "Obviously." Catherine's tone was grim. "He is moving faster than I expected. This is not just damage control, this is a preemptive strike. He is setting the narrative before you can. Then we accelerate our timeline." Marcus set down his phone and looked out at the city. "The gala is in 3 weeks. Can we move it up?" "No." Catherine was firm. "The venue is booked. The guests are invited. Moving it would only give Richard more ammunition. He would say you are erratic, desperate. No, we stick to the plan. But we need to prepare for escalation. He will not stop with one article." She was right. The next day, a second article appeared. This one in a gossip column, breathless and sensational. "Billionaire's Mystery Woman. Who is Maya Sullivan?" It included a photograph, Maya leaving the hospital, tired, worried, looking exactly like what she was, a working-class woman fighting for her dying mother. The article painted her as a gold digger, a schemer, someone who had latched onto a vulnerable billionaire and was feeding him lies for her own gain. Maya called Marcus, her voice shaking with rage. "They are destroying me, making me look like some kind of con artist. My boss at the diner saw it. He asked me if I was trying to extort you. He asked if I was really that kind of person." Marcus felt ice in his veins. "Did you tell him the truth?" "How can I?" Maya's voice broke. "How can I explain that I am the great-granddaughter of a man who was erased from history? That my grandfather's invention was stolen? That the Ashford fortune is built on my family's suffering? He would think I was insane. They all would. Then let them think what they want. Marcus surprised himself with the steadiness in his voice. We know the truth. Catherine knows, Jenny knows, your mother knows. And in 3 weeks, everyone will know. Hold on, Maya. Just hold on. After he hung up, Marcus made another call to his head of security. I need protection for Sarah and Maya Sullivan. Discreet but effective. 24/7. Someone is targeting them. I want them safe. The security chief did not ask questions. Understood. They will have a team by end of day. But Richard was not done. 2 days later, the hospital called. Maya answered, fear immediately flooding her chest. Miss Sullivan, there has been an incident with your mother's care. What kind of incident? Maya was already grabbing her keys. Her medications. There was a discrepancy in the dosage orders. We caught it before administration, but the nurse's voice was carefully neutral. We believe someone may have attempted to alter her treatment plan. Maya's blood went cold. Someone tried to hurt her. We cannot confirm that, but we have notified hospital security and the police. We wanted you to be aware. We have also moved your mother to a private floor with restricted access. Maya drove to the hospital at speeds that should have gotten her pulled over. Her hands were shaking on the wheel. Her mother. Someone had tried to hurt her mother, not with violence, but with something subtler, something that could be dismissed as human error or system failure, a dosage error that would be discovered too late. She found Sarah awake, alert, and furious. They think I did not notice. Sarah's voice was steady, but her eyes were bright with anger. But I have been tracking my medications for months. I know every pill, every dosage. Someone changed the orders, tripled my pain medication. That much would have put me into respiratory failure. Maya sank into the chair beside the bed. Richard. Probably. Sarah's jaw was set. He is trying to silence me, the old-fashioned way, make it look natural. A dying woman takes too much medication. Who would question it? I am moving you. Maya was already pulling out her phone. Catherine has resources. We can get you into a private facility, somewhere safe. No. Sarah's voice was steel. Absolutely not. I am not hiding. I am not running. That is what they want. They want me scared and silent and out of the way. I will not give them that satisfaction. Her hand shot out and gripped Maya's wrist with surprising strength. I am staying here, in this hospital, where there are witnesses and cameras and records. Let them try again. Let them show their hand. Mom, you could die. I am dying anyway. Sarah's expression softened. But I will not die a coward. I will not spend my last weeks hiding in fear. We have 3 weeks until the gala. I will survive 3 weeks out of sheer spite, if nothing else. Despite everything, Maya laughed. It came out as a sob. You are the most stubborn woman I have ever met. I learned from the best. Sarah squeezed her hand. My father never gave up. Even when they broke him, he kept going, kept providing for us, kept loving us, until his body gave out. I can be that strong. For 3 more weeks, for justice. A knock at the door made them both tense, but it was Marcus, followed by 2 serious-looking men in dark suits. The security team. He had come as soon as he heard. Catherine traced the medication change. Marcus's voice was tight with controlled fury. It came from an external computer. Someone hacked the hospital system. We have the IP address. The police are investigating. But we all know who is behind it. Richard. Sarah said the name like a curse. Marcus nodded. He is desperate, which makes him dangerous. He pulled up a chair and sat. His usual corporate composure was cracked. He looked tired, haunted, human. I am sorry. This is my fault, my family, my cousin. I brought this nightmare into your life. No. Sarah's voice was firm. Your family brought this nightmare into my life 50 years ago when they destroyed my father. You are the first Ashford who has tried to make it right. Do not apologize for that. Fight for it. The next blow came from an unexpected direction. Marcus's board of directors called an emergency meeting. He was given 24 hours notice. The agenda was simple and brutal. Vote of confidence in current leadership. Catherine appeared at his penthouse that evening, legal briefs in hand. Richard has been building support for weeks. Quietly. He has convinced at least 5 board members that you are having some kind of breakdown, that your judgment is compromised, that the company needs new leadership. How many votes does he have? Marcus was at his desk, going through the company bylaws. We think 6, maybe 7. You need 8 to survive the vote. It is going to be close. Catherine set down her briefcase. Marcus, you need to fight this. Go to the board members who are undecided. Explain what is really happening. Show them the evidence. And if they do not believe me? Catherine's silence was answer enough. Then I lose the company. Marcus said it calmly. He had been preparing for this, mentally rehearsing the moment when everything fell apart, and Richard takes over, and the truth stays buried. Not necessarily. Catherine pulled out another document. There is another option. You could go public. Now. Before the board meeting. Release everything to the media. Make it impossible for them to ignore or bury. Force their hand. That would start a firestorm. Yes. Catherine met his gaze. It would. The stock would crash. There would be lawsuits, investigations. The company might not survive, but the truth would be out. And Richard could not stop it. Marcus thought about Daniel, about the choice he had made. Empire or integrity, power or truth. And Sarah, dying but refusing to hide. And Maya, fighting for her mother even though it meant risking everything. Not yet, Marcus decided. We stick to the plan. The gala. Public. With Sarah standing there to tell her story. That has more power than a press release. But, he looked at Catherine, start preparing the documents. If the board votes me out before the gala, we release everything immediately. I will not let them silence this. Catherine nodded. Then you need to survive the vote, which means you need to convince at least 2 undecided board members. Tonight. Marcus spent the next 18 hours in meetings. Board members in oak-paneled offices and expensive restaurants. Men in their 60s and 70s who had known his grandfather, who had built their own fortunes alongside Victor Ashford, who saw Marcus as a son or nephew or protege. He told them everything, showed them the documents, the letters, the evidence, and watched their faces as the truth settled over them like ash. Some believed him, were horrified, ashamed of what their old friend had done. These were the ones who would vote to keep Marcus in place, to support his quest for truth even if it damaged the company. Others did not believe him, or did not want to. Saw the documents as clever forgeries, saw Sarah and Maya as opportunists, saw Marcus as a naive fool being manipulated. These were the ones who would vote with Richard. And then there were the 2 who could not decide, who saw the truth but were afraid of it, afraid of what it would cost them, their reputations, their legacies, their comfortable certainty that the Ashford empire had been built on merit rather than theft. Marcus sat across from the last one, Gerald Morrison, 70 years old, had served on the board for 30 years. His vote would decide everything. Gerald, Marcus said quietly, I am not asking you to destroy the company. I am asking you to help me save it, to transform it into something that can be proud of its future instead of ashamed of its past. Gerald stared into his whiskey. Your grandfather and I, we came up together, built this company side by side. If what you are saying is true, then I was complicit. I benefited from stolen work, from threatened families, from a system built on crime. You did not know? Marcus said gently. Did I not? Gerald looked up. There were tears in his old eyes. Or did I just not want to know? Did I see the signs and ignore them because it was profitable to do so? He set down his glass. What you are asking me to do, voting to keep you in place, supporting this revelation. It means admitting I was blind, or worse, that I was complicit. It means choosing truth over comfort. Marcus held his gaze, just like Daniel did, just like I am trying to do. And yes, it will cost you, cost all of us. But what is the alternative? To keep lying? To keep building on a foundation of theft? Is that the legacy you want to leave? Gerald was silent for a long time. Then he stood, offered his hand. You have my vote and my respect. Your grandfather was my friend, but you are the man he should have been. The board meeting was held at 8 in the morning in the main conference room of Ashford Tower. 18 board members around a massive table. Richard at one end, smiling his charming smile. Marcus at the other, calm and resolute. Catherine sitting behind him as counsel. Richard opened with a prepared statement. Accusations carefully worded to avoid slander, but designed to destroy. He spoke of Marcus's erratic behavior, his secret meetings, his obsession with family mythology, his susceptibility to manipulation by outside parties seeking financial gain. He made it sound reasonable, concerned. He made it sound like an intervention rather than a coup. Then it was Marcus's turn. He did not defend himself, did not argue with Richard's characterizations. Instead, he opened his laptop and projected documents onto the screen behind him. The Paris ledger, Edmund's letters, the surveillance reports, Daniel's existence, Thomas Garrett's stolen patent, the systematic theft that had built the Ashford empire. He spoke for 20 minutes, laid it all out, and watched the board members' faces change from skepticism to shock to horror. All except Richard, whose smile had frozen into something brittle and dangerous. "This is what our company is built on," Marcus finished quietly. "Theft, threats, the destruction of innocent people. I am not asking you to vote for me because I am the better CEO. I am asking you to vote for the truth, even if it costs us everything." The vote was taken by secret ballot. Catherine collected them, counted them. Her face was carefully neutral. Then she looked at Marcus and nodded once. 9 votes in favor of current leadership, 8 against, 1 abstention. Marcus Ashford remains as CEO. The relief that washed through Marcus was so powerful he felt dizzy. He had survived, barely, by a single vote, but he had survived. Richard stood. His charm had evaporated, replaced by cold fury. "This is not over, cousin. You think you have won, but you have just guaranteed the destruction of everything our family built. And when the shareholders sue, when the company collapses, when our name becomes synonymous with scandal instead of success, remember that you did this. You chose this." "I did." Marcus met his stare. "And I would choose it again." Richard left. 3 of his supporters went with him. The remaining board members sat in stunned silence. Finally, Gerald Morrison spoke. "What happens now?" "Now we prepare." Marcus stood. "In 2 weeks at the Foundation Gala, the full truth will be revealed, publicly. Sarah Sullivan will speak, the documents will be released, and Ashford Industries will face the consequences of its history. I suggest you all prepare your own statements, because this is going to be the biggest story of the year." That evening, Marcus's father arrived from Paris. Joseph Ashford had aged in the years since Marcus had last seen him. More gray hair, more lines around his eyes. But there was something different too. A steadiness, a clarity. As if the decision to come back had lifted a weight he had been carrying for decades. They met at Marcus's penthouse, father and son, separated by years of distance and silence, united now by the choice to face the truth. "I am sorry." Joseph said it immediately. "I should have done this years ago. Should have stood up to Victor, to your grandfather. Should have told you the truth instead of running away. I was a coward. You are here now." Marcus poured them both scotch. "That is what matters." Joseph took the glass but did not drink. "Your mother, she would have done this. If she had lived, she would have fought. She had integrity. She married me thinking I had it too." He laughed bitterly. "I disappointed her in that, among other things. Tell me about her." Marcus realized he was asking something he should have asked years ago. "Really tell me, not the official story, the truth." Joseph's eyes went distant. "She was a lawyer, corporate law, brilliant. We met when she was working on a merger for Ashford Industries. She was fierce, uncompromising. She saw through the corporate doublespeak and called it what it was. Your grandfather hated her, thought she would corrupt me, make me soft." He paused. He was right. She did make me see things differently. Made me question the family business, the methods, the ethics. "What happened?" "She died when you were 5. Cancer, rapid, brutal. And Joseph's voice broke. "I fell apart. Let your grandfather take over your upbringing. Let him mold you into the heir he wanted. I told myself I was grieving, that I needed time. But the truth is I was relieved. Relieved to not have to fight anymore, to not have to be the man she wanted me to be. You left. I ran. To Europe, to wine and distance and pretending the Ashford Empire had nothing to do with me. I let you shoulder the burden alone. And I am sorry. I am so deeply sorry." Marcus looked at his father, saw the regret, the shame, but also the courage it had taken to come back, to face what he had fled. I forgive you. The words came easily, surprised him with their truth. You were not strong enough then, but you are here now. That is enough. Joseph set down his glass, stood, embraced his son. They held each other in silence. 2 generations of Ashford men, finally choosing truth over comfort, integrity over empire. It did not erase the past, but it was a start. The days before the gala blurred together, a frenzy of preparation. Catherine and her team creating a presentation that was bulletproof, documents verified, timeline established, legal defenses prepared for the lawsuits that would inevitably come. Jenny coordinating with the venue staff, ensuring they had control of the audiovisual systems, ensuring that once Sarah started speaking, no one could cut the feed. Maya spent every spare moment at the hospital with her mother. Sarah was fading. The stress and excitement were taking their toll. Her skin had taken on a translucent quality. Her breathing was labored even with the oxygen. But her mind was sharp, her determination unshakable. They chose her dress together. Not a hospital gown, not a wheelchair-bound invalid. A dress. Deep blue. The color of the sapphire in the eagle's eye. Maya helped her try it on. Sarah looked at herself in the mirror and smiled. I look like I am going to war. You are. Maya adjusted the fabric. We all are. Good. Sarah turned from the mirror. Because I intend to win. The day before the gala, Marcus visited. He brought flowers, white roses, Sarah's favorites, though he had to ask Maya to find out. They talked for an hour, about Daniel, about Helen, about the choices people make when everything is on the line. He loved her so much, Sarah said quietly. Daniel loved Helen with a purity that most people never experience, and she loved him back the same way. They had 34 years together, not rich, not famous, but happy, truly happy. Do you think, Marcus hesitated, do you think that kind of love still exists in this world? Sarah looked at him, looked at Maya standing by the window, smiled. I think it exists when people are brave enough to choose it, when they are willing to pay the cost. She reached out and took Marcus's hand. Daniel paid with an empire. What are you willing to pay? Marcus followed her gaze to Maya, understanding what Sarah was really asking. Everything, he said simply. I am willing to pay everything. The morning of the gala, Sarah woke early. Maya found her sitting up in bed, the velvet box open in her hands, the eagle ring gleaming in the morning light. I am going to wear it, Sarah announced. Today, at the gala, I am going to walk in there with Daniel's ring on my finger. Let them see it. Let them know what they destroyed. Mom. Maya's voice was gentle. You cannot walk. The wheelchair. I can stand. Sarah's voice was firm. For 5 minutes. For 10. Long enough to speak. Long enough to show them I am not ashamed. Not defeated, not silent. She held up the ring. Daniel gave this to Helen as a promise, that love and integrity mattered more than power. I am going to honor that promise. Standing. The gala was held at the Ashford Grand Hotel, a massive ballroom that glittered with crystal chandeliers and gold leaf, 500 guests in evening wear, business leaders, politicians, philanthropists, the media, everyone who mattered in Denver and beyond. Richard was there, playing the perfect host, smiling, shaking hands, accepting congratulations on another successful foundation year. He saw Marcus arrive with his father, and his smile tightened. Saw Catherine with her team of lawyers. Saw Jenny in her catering uniform, though she was clearly not there to serve drinks. Then Sarah arrived. In her wheelchair, yes, but dressed in that deep blue gown. Maya beside her in a simple black dress, and on Sarah's right hand the eagle ring, gleaming, impossible to miss. A ripple of whispers spread through the crowd. That is her. The woman claiming to be related to the Ashfords, the one they say is trying to extort money. Look at her. She's wearing a ring like Marcus Ashford's. Richard intercepted them as they entered. His smile was poisonous. Ms. Sullivan, how brave of you to attend. Given your... He let his gaze drift pointedly to the wheelchair. Condition. Sarah met his eyes. Her voice was clear, steady. I am braver than you will ever be, Mr. Ashford. Because I have nothing to lose, and you have everything. Let us see which of us is left standing when the truth comes out. Richard's smile vanished. He opened his mouth to respond, but Marcus appeared between them. Richard, walk away, now. Or what, cousin? Richard's voice was low, poisonous. You will make a scene in front of all these people? Please, you do not have the spine. Try me. Marcus's voice was cold, dead calm, dangerous. You tried to harm Sarah, tampered with her medications, tried to kill her to keep her silent. That makes you not just a liar, not just a thief, a would-be murderer. And when the police finish their investigation, when they trace that hack back to you will spend the next decade in prison. So, yes, walk away while you still can. Richard stared at him. Something changed in his expression. The charm evaporated completely, leaving only rage. You are destroying our family, everything we built, everything we are. We built nothing. Marcus's voice was steady, loud enough that people nearby turned to listen. Daniel built it, Thomas Garrett built it, and we stole it. That ends tonight. Richard looked around, saw the guests watching, realized he had lost control of the moment. He straightened his jacket, smoothed his hair, put the charming smile back on like a mask. Then we will see. He walked away, but the threat hung in the air like smoke. Dinner was served. Speeches were made. The usual foundation business. Richard stood at the podium and talked about philanthropy and community investment and the Ashford commitment to excellence. He looked confident, controlled, but Marcus could see the tension in his shoulders, the way his eyes kept drifting to Sarah's table, to the ring gleaming on her hand. Then it was time. Catherine had arranged it, a special presentation, to honor the foundation's history, to acknowledge those who had contributed to the Ashford legacy. The lights dimmed, the screens came to life, and Catherine stood. Ladies and gentlemen, there is something you need to know, something that has been hidden for 100 years. Tonight, we are going to tell you the truth, all of it, and we are going to start with the words of a woman who has carried that truth longer than most of us have been alive. Please welcome Sarah Sullivan. The spotlight swung to Sarah's table. For a moment, she sat frozen in her wheelchair. Then Maya moved to help her. But Sarah held up a hand. No, I stand. And she did. Slowly, painfully, using every ounce of strength her failing body possessed. She stood, gripped the edge of the table to steady herself, and faced 500 people who had never heard her name. My name is Sarah Sullivan. Her voice was quiet, but the microphone Catherine had hidden at her table caught every word, amplified it, sent it through speakers to every corner of that vast room. I am 52 years old. I have cancer. I am dying. But before I die, you are going to hear what your precious Ashford family did to mine. The room went absolutely silent. Even the servers stopped moving. Every eye was on the dying woman in the blue dress, on the ring on her hand that caught the light and threw it back like an accusation. In 1968, 2 men came to my house. I was 8 years old. They worked for Victor Ashford, and they destroyed my family, not with violence, with something worse, with threats, with theft, with systematic cruelty. And tonight, you are going to learn exactly what they did. Catherine clicked the remote. The first image appeared on the screens, a photograph of young Sarah at school, playing on a swing set, innocent, unaware that someone was watching her, taking pictures of her to use as leverage. This is me. Sarah's voice was stronger now. This photograph was taken by men hired by Victor Ashford to threaten my father, to make him understand that if he did not give up his invention, his family would pay the price. Another image, Sarah's mother at a grocery store, another violation, another threat. This is my mother, also being stalked, also being photographed, also being used as leverage to steal from a good man. The room erupted in whispers, gasps. Richard was on his feet, his face red. This is slander! This is a coordinated attack! Security! But security did not move. Catherine had arranged that too. They were standing by the doors, watching, waiting, letting the truth come out. Sarah was still speaking, still standing. My father was Thomas Garrett. He invented a turbine gearing system that revolutionized the industry. Victor Ashford stole it, forced my father to sign it away, paid him $50,000 to stay silent, and then built a billion-dollar empire on my father's stolen genius. The screens changed. Patent applications. Ashford Mark III schematics. Side by side, identical designs. The visual evidence was undeniable. Then Sarah played her final card. But that is not the worst of it. The worst is that Thomas Garrett was not some random engineer. He was Daniel Ashford's son. He was the grandson of Edmund Ashford. He was family. And Victor knew it. Victor destroyed his own cousin to protect his illegitimate claim to the Ashford fortune. The room exploded, people shouting, Richard screaming denials, board members demanding explanations, media recording everything, cameras flashing like lightning. And Sarah Sullivan stood in the middle of it all, dying, defiant, finally telling the truth after 50 years of silence. The eagle ring on her hand blazing in the spotlight like a star. Marcus stood too, walked to Sarah's side, held up his own hand, showing his ring, identical to hers. Two halves of a whole, finally reunited in the fight for truth. He faced the crowd, his voice cut through the chaos. Everything Sarah Sullivan has said is true. I have the documents, the letters, the evidence, all of it verified, all of it real. My family built this empire on theft, on threats, on the systematic destruction of innocent people. And tonight, that ends. Tonight, we face what we have done. Tonight, we choose truth over reputation, justice over comfort. We choose to be worthy of Daniel Ashford's legacy instead of perpetuating Victor Ashford's crimes. Richard was still screaming, still denying, but no one was listening to him anymore. They were listening to Sarah, to Marcus, to Catherine as she methodically displayed document after document, proof after proof, truth after undeniable truth. Sarah swayed, her strength finally giving out. Maya caught her, lowered her back into the wheelchair, but Sarah was smiling, tears streaming down her face. "It is done," she whispered. "Finally. It is done." The gala had become chaos. The truth was out, and there was no taking it back. No spinning it, no burying it. It would be on every news site by morning, in every paper, on every television. The Ashford Empire was falling, and from the ashes, perhaps something better could rise, something honest, something built on integrity instead of theft, something worthy of the man who had given up everything for love a century ago, something Daniel Ashford would be proud of. The eagle had risen, and the storm at last was breaking. There are moments when everything changes, when the old world ends and the new one begins, when what was hidden is finally seen, when what was stolen is finally returned, when justice, so long delayed that it seemed impossible, finally arrives. Not gently, not quietly, but with the force of a century's worth of suppressed truth. The morning after the gala, the world woke to a different reality. The Ashford Empire was no longer a monument to American success. It was a cautionary tale, a reminder that empires built on lies eventually collapse under the weight of their own deception. And sometimes, it takes a dying woman and a repentant heir to bring them down. The ballroom of the Ashford Grand Hotel had emptied in chaos, guests fleeing, cameras flashing, media calling for statements. Richard Ashford being escorted out by security, still screaming denials that no one believed anymore. The evidence had been too thorough, the testimony too powerful. Sarah Sullivan standing in her blue dress with that ring blazing on her finger. Marcus Ashford beside her, his own ring held high. Two eagles finally flying together after a century apart. Sarah had collapsed immediately after, the adrenaline that had kept her upright finally exhausted. Maya caught her before she hit the ground. Paramedics were called, an ambulance summoned. But even as they loaded her onto the gurney, even as the oxygen mask covered her face, Sarah was smiling. The kind of smile that comes from a lifetime of carrying weight finally set down. "It is done," she whispered to Maya, her voice barely audible under the mask. "We told them. We made them see. Rest now, Mom." Maya held her hand as they wheeled her toward the ambulance. "You can rest now." But Sarah shook her head weakly. "Not yet. Not until I know. Not until I see what comes next." Her eyes found Marcus, who had followed them out. Promise me you will finish this, that justice will be real, not just words." Marcus knelt beside the gurney, his expensive suit rumpled, his usual composure completely gone. I promise, on my life, on Daniel's memory, on everything I am or will ever be. I promise. Sarah's hand tightened on Maya's. Then I can rest. When it is done, when justice is real, then I can rest. The ambulance doors closed, red lights spinning, siren wailing. Maya climbed in beside her mother, and Marcus stood on the steps of the hotel watching them go. Behind him, the building that bore his family's name. Ahead of him, an uncertain future. But for the first time in his life, he felt like he was standing on solid ground instead of quicksand. Catherine appeared at his elbow. Her suit jacket was gone. Her hair had come loose from its usual perfect arrangement, but her eyes were bright with triumph. We did it. Her voice was soft after all these years, all the silence. We actually did it. Marcus turned to look at her. Catherine Stone, 62 years old, veteran of 1,000 corporate battles, keeper of secrets, and now, finally, teller of truths. Thank you for believing me, for believing them, for making this possible. Catherine smiled. It was tired, but genuine. I became a lawyer to fight for people who could not fight for themselves. Somewhere along the way, I forgot that. Started fighting for corporations instead of people. You reminded me why I started. Sarah reminded me. So, thank you. The media descended like locusts. Cameras, microphones, questions shouted from every direction. Marcus Ashford, is it true your family's fortune is built on theft? Will you resign as CEO? What do you say to the families of other inventors your grandfather may have exploited? How does it feel to know your entire legacy is a lie? Marcus raised a hand. The questions died. He looked directly into the cameras, knowing that whatever he said next would be replayed 1,000 times, would define him for the rest of his life. He chose his words carefully. Everything Sarah Sullivan said tonight is true. My grandfather Victor Ashford stole Thomas Garrett's invention, threatened his family, destroyed a good man's life. And that theft was not an isolated incident. It was part of a pattern, a system. My family built its empire by stealing from people who could not fight back, by silencing those who tried to speak up, by valuing profit over human dignity. He paused. Let the weight of that settle. I cannot undo the past. I cannot bring back Thomas Garrett. I cannot give Sarah Sullivan back the 50 years she spent in silence and fear. But I can do two things. First, I can tell the truth. All of it. Hold nothing back. Let the investigators come. Let the lawsuits be filed. Let justice be served, whatever the cost. And second, a reporter called out. Second, Marcus continued, I can make sure it never happens again. Starting tomorrow, I am establishing the Daniel and Helen Ashford Foundation. Not to honor my family's empire, but to honor the man my family erased. The man who chose love over power, integrity over wealth. The man who should have inherited the Ashford fortune, but walked away from it because it required him to betray his own heart. The cameras were recording every word, every expression. The fall of an empire happening in real time. The foundation will be funded by my personal fortune. $500 million to start. Its mission will be simple: to support inventors, artists, and creators whose work has been stolen or suppressed, to give voice to those who have been silenced, to make sure that what happened to Thomas Garrett never happens to anyone else. What about Ashford Industries? Another reporter. What about the company? Marcus looked back at the building, the tower that bore his name, the monument to his family's stolen legacy. That is for the board to decide, and for the courts, and for the families my grandfather wronged. I will cooperate fully with any investigation. I will testify at any trial. I will hold nothing back, and if the company has to be dismantled to make things right. He met the camera's gaze directly, then let it be dismantled. The questions came faster now, but Marcus turned away. He had said what needed saying. The rest would unfold as it would. He found his father standing near the hotel entrance, Joseph Ashford looking older than his years, but standing straighter than Marcus had seen him stand in decades. You did well, Joseph said quietly. Your mother would have been proud. I hope Sarah will be too, Marcus replied. When she wakes up. If she wakes up. She will. Joseph put a hand on his son's shoulder. Women like that, they do not give up, not when they have finally won. But the immediate aftermath was brutal. By morning, the story had gone global. Ashford empire built on century of theft. Billionaire admits family crimes. Dying woman's testimony exposes corporate dynasty. The stock price of Ashford Industries opened in free fall, down 40% in the first hour of trading, down 60% by close of business. Investors dumping shares, partners canceling contracts. The empire that had taken a century to build was collapsing in days. Richard Ashford held a press conference, denied everything, called it a conspiracy, claimed Marcus had been manipulated, claimed Sarah Sullivan was lying for money. But no one believed him. The documents were too solid, the evidence too overwhelming, and his own behavior at the gala, screaming denials while security dragged him away, had destroyed any credibility he might have had. Within a week, criminal charges were filed. Not against Victor Ashford, who had been dead for 20 years, but against Richard, for the attempted tampering with Sarah's medications, for conspiracy to commit murder, for obstruction of justice. The evidence Catherine had compiled was thorough. The IP address traced to Richard's computer, the hospital logs altered from his login, the paper trail leading directly to him. Richard's arrest was quiet, almost anticlimactic. No screaming, no dramatic exit, just a man in handcuffs being led into a police station. His charming smile finally, completely gone, replaced by the cold understanding that he had lost everything. His freedom, his reputation, his claim to the Ashford legacy, all of it gone because he had tried to silence the truth instead of facing it. Marcus visited him once, in jail, through a glass partition. Richard looked smaller somehow, diminished. The expensive suit replaced with prison orange, the manicured confidence replaced with hollow rage. "Why are you here?" Richard's voice was flat. "To gloat?" "No." Marcus kept his own voice steady. "To give you a chance, the same chance Edmund never gave Daniel, a chance to admit what you did, to apologize, to try to make some small part of this right." Richard laughed. It was an ugly sound. "Make it right? You destroyed our family, everything we built, everything we were. And you want me to apologize? What we built was a lie." Marcus leaned forward. "Daniel built it. Thomas built it. We just stole it and put our name on it. That is what I want you to understand. That is what I need you to see. Because if you do not see it, if you die still believing the lie, then you will have wasted your entire life defending something that never existed." Richard stared at him through the glass. For a moment, something flickered in his eyes, something that might have been doubt, or regret, or understanding. But then it was gone, replaced by cold certainty. "I have nothing to say to you." "Then I am sorry." Marcus stood. "Sorry that you cannot see what I see, that love and integrity matter more than empires, that Daniel made the right choice and Edmund made the wrong one, that you had a chance to be part of the solution and you chose to be part of the problem." He turned to leave, then stopped. "One more thing. Sarah Sullivan is still alive, still fighting, and she has already won. Remember that in here. Remember that a dying woman with nothing was stronger than you with everything." He did not look back as he left. Sarah spent 2 weeks in intensive care. The stress of the gala had triggered multiple organ failures. The doctors were grim, told Maya to prepare for the worst. But Sarah was stubborn. As she had always been, she held on, fought for every breath, refused to let go until she had seen the justice completed. Maya never left her side, sleeping in an uncomfortable chair, eating vending machine food, holding her mother's hand and telling her about the news, about Richard's arrest, about the foundation being established, about the outpouring of support from strangers who had seen the truth and believed it. Other inventors started coming forward, people whose work had been stolen by Ashford Industries over the decades, 14 of them, with stories eerily similar to Thomas Garrett's, innovations taken, patents suppressed, lives destroyed. Catherine took their cases, all of them, pro bono, building a class action lawsuit that would ensure Ashford Industries either made massive restitution or ceased to exist. Marcus visited often, bringing flowers, sitting quietly when Sarah was too weak to talk, talking to Maya when Sarah was asleep. They built something during those vigils. Not romance, though that was starting to kindle beneath the surface. Something deeper first. Respect. Understanding. The recognition of two people who had chosen to do the right thing even when the cost was everything. 3 weeks after the gala, Sarah woke from what the doctors had thought was her final decline. Her eyes were clear. She looked at Maya, then at Marcus, who had been sitting in the corner reading documents, then at the television where the news was playing footage of the foundation's first grants being awarded. "We won." Sarah's voice was a whisper, but it was steady. "Did we not? We actually won." "You won." Maya was crying, holding her mother's hand. "You stood up to them. You told the truth. You changed everything." Sarah smiled. "Then I can rest, really rest. Not yet. Not today. But soon. And when I do," she looked at Marcus. "When I do, I want you to promise me something." "Anything." Marcus moved closer to the bed. "Promise me you will take care of her." Sarah's gaze shifted to Maya. "Not because she needs taking care of. My daughter is strong, stronger than I ever was, but because she will need someone who understands, someone who knows what it cost, someone who chose the same thing." "I promise." Marcus did not hesitate. "Good." Sarah closed her eyes. "Then I can rest." But she did not rest. Not yet. She held on through summer and into fall, long past what the doctors predicted, long past what seemed possible. Held on to see the foundation's official launch, to see the first grants awarded, to see 14 families receive settlements from Ashford Industries, to see Marcus step down as CEO and the company restructured under independent oversight. She held on to see Maya enroll in college, engineering, like her grandfather and great-grandfather before her. Held on to see Marcus and Maya's relationship deepen from allies to friends to something more. Held on to see the 2 rings, the eagle rings, placed in a display case at the foundation headquarters, side by side, finally together, finally honored. And she held on to see the dedication ceremony. 6 months after the gala, the Daniel and Helen Ashford Memorial Hall, a building purchased by the foundation, not in Denver, in the small Montana town where Daniel and Helen had built their life together, where they had raised their son in love and poverty and dignity, where they were buried in a quiet cemetery with simple headstones. Marcus arranged for Sarah to travel, against all medical advice, in a private plane with a full medical team, Maya beside her. Joseph Ashford there too, Catherine, Jenny, the people who had fought for the truth and won. The ceremony was simple, a small crowd, local residents who remembered Daniel and Helen as the quiet couple who had lived on Maple Street, who had kept to themselves but had been unfailingly kind, who had seemed content despite having nothing, who had loved each other with a quiet intensity that the whole town had noticed. The mayor spoke, talked about the legacy of integrity, about how Daniel Ashford had given up everything for love and built something better than an empire. He built a life worth living. Then Marcus spoke, told the full story, about Edmund and Daniel, about the partnership that should have been, about the choice Daniel made and the price he paid, about Helen, who had refused $5,000 because love does not have a price, about Thomas, their son, whose brilliance was stolen, but whose integrity remained intact, about Sarah, who had carried the truth for 50 years and finally found the courage to speak it. As he spoke, Maya pushed Sarah's wheelchair to the front. Sarah insisted on standing for this part too. Marcus and Maya helped her to her feet, held her steady as she faced the small crowd. As she spoke in a voice that was thin but clear, "My grandfather Thomas Garrett died believing he had failed, believing his life's work had been for nothing, believing the powerful always win and the good always lose." She paused, took a labored breath. But he was wrong. He did not fail. His work changed the world. It just wore someone else's name for a while. And the powerful do not always win. Sometimes. She looked at Marcus. Sometimes they have grandsons who choose to be better than their grandfathers, who choose truth over comfort, who choose to honor Daniel instead of Victor. She pulled the ring from her finger, held it up so it caught the autumn sunlight. This ring was meant to symbolize a partnership, builder and guardian, 2 halves of a whole. For 100 years they were separated. The builder built empires without a soul. The guardian protected truth in silence. But today, she handed the ring to Marcus. Today, they are reunited. Today, the partnership is restored, not to build empires, but to build justice. Marcus took the ring, removed his own, held them both up. The two eagles, identical, finally together in the light. Then he placed them both in the velvet-lined box that would be sealed into the cornerstone of the memorial hall. Not worn, not hidden, but preserved, a testament to what had been lost and what had finally been found. The crowd applauded. Sarah sagged against Maya. Marcus helped lower her back into the wheelchair, and they stood there in the Montana sunlight while a stone was set, sealing the rings inside, sealing the promise that Daniel's choice had been right, that love and integrity did matter more than empires, that truth, no matter how long buried, eventually finds its way to light. That night, in the hotel where they were staying, Sarah had another crisis, her body finally giving out. The doctors came, did what they could, but it was clear this was the end, not sudden, not violent, but inevitable. The cancer had won the war, even though Sarah had won the battle. Maya sat beside the bed, held her mother's hand, tried not to cry because she needed to be strong. But the tears came anyway. 52 years. Not long enough, not nearly long enough. Sarah opened her eyes, smiled. I am ready. Her voice was barely audible. I have seen it. The foundation, the truth, justice. I am ready. I am not. Maya's voice broke. I am not ready to lose you. You will never lose me. Sarah squeezed her hand with what little strength remained. I am in you, in your courage, in your integrity, in every choice you make to do what is right even when it costs everything. That is how we live forever, through the people we love and the values we pass on. Marcus appeared in the doorway, hesitant, not wanting to intrude. But Sarah saw him, gestured weakly. He came in, stood beside Maya. Take care of each other. Sarah looked between them. You have both lost so much. Family, legacy, certainty about who you are. But you have gained something too. You have gained the truth, and each other. Do not waste that. We will not, Marcus promised, his voice rough with emotion. Good. Sarah closed her eyes. The monitors were beeping. Slower now, irregular. Tell my father, when you see him. Tell Thomas that I kept the promise. I told them. I made them see. Tell him he did not fail. He would be so proud of you. Maya was sobbing now. So proud. And I am proud of you. Sarah's hand tightened one last time. So very proud. Her breathing slowed, became shallow. The machines sang their sad song. Maya held her mother's hand. Marcus stood behind her, his hand on her shoulder. A silent support. A promise being kept. Sarah Sullivan died at 3:47 in the morning, peacefully, with her daughter beside her, her battle won, her truth told, her father's name cleared, her life, which had been marked by poverty and struggle and 50 years of carrying secrets, ending in victory. The funeral was held in Montana, in the same cemetery where Daniel and Helen rested, where Thomas Garrett had been buried 30 years before. Sarah was laid between her grandparents, the three of them together at last, guardian of the guardian of the guardian, a chain of integrity that had held for a century. The headstone was simple, like Daniel and Helen's, like Thomas's. No grand monument, just name and dates and a single line that Maya had chosen. She spoke the truth and set us free. Marcus spoke at the service, talked about courage, about the woman who had been invisible to the world but had changed it anyway, who had been dying but had refused to let death silence her, who had been poor but had been rich in the things that mattered. I did not know Sarah Sullivan long, Marcus said to the gathered mourners, but she changed my life. She showed me what integrity looks like, what courage looks like, what matters when everything else falls away. I will spend the rest of my life trying to be worthy of the trust she placed in me. After the service, Maya stood alone at the grave, the autumn leaves falling around her, the Montana mountains rising in the distance. She felt hollowed out, empty, like part of her had been buried in that earth. Marcus found her there as the sun was setting, stood beside her without speaking. Sometimes silence is the only appropriate response to grief. Finally, Maya spoke. I do not know who I am without her. I have spent my whole life being Sarah Sullivan's daughter. And now I am just Maya. You are never just anything, Marcus said quietly. You are Maya Sullivan, granddaughter of Thomas Garrett, great-granddaughter of Daniel Ashford, daughter of the bravest woman I have ever known, and the woman who stood beside her mother and changed the world. Maya looked at him. At this man who had given up an empire because it was the right thing to do, who had stood beside her and her mother when he could have buried the truth and kept his comfortable lie, who had chosen integrity over inheritance. I think my mother liked you. I know she did. Marcus smiled slightly. She told me so, several times, usually followed by threats about what she would do to me if I hurt you. Despite everything, Maya laughed. That sounds like her. They stood together as the sun set. Two people bound by a shared history of loss and choice and the stubborn pursuit of truth. Two people starting to realize that what they felt for each other had grown beyond alliance or friendship into something deeper. I do not want the Ashford name, Maya said suddenly. I know legally I have a claim. I know the bloodline makes me an heir. But I do not want it. That name is poison. It is theft and lies and a century of destruction. Then do not take it. Marcus turned to face her fully. Build something new. Build something that is yours. Not Daniel's, not Thomas's, not Sarah's. Yours. And if you want... He hesitated. If you want, I will help you build it. Maya met his eyes, saw the question there. The hope, the fear. As partners? As partners, Marcus confirmed. Builder and guardian, two halves of a whole, the way it was always meant to be. Maya thought about her mother, about the ring in the cornerstone, about Daniel and Helen choosing love over empire, about Thomas dying but his daughter surviving to tell the truth, about Sarah fighting until justice was real, about the long chain of integrity that had brought her to this moment. Yes, she said it simply, as partners. They did not kiss, not yet. That would come. But they stood together in the gathering dark, and they made plans for the foundation, for the future, for a legacy that would honor all the people who had been lost, but would build something for all the people yet to come. 6 months later, the Ashford Industries Board voted to dissolve the company. The restitution lawsuits had been too costly, the damage to the brand too severe, the revelations too devastating. Rather than continue under a poisoned name, they chose to end it. Assets were liquidated, settlements paid. 14 families received compensation for stolen work. Sarah's estate received a payment of $50 million. Not restitution for Thomas. You cannot put a price on a stolen life, but acknowledgement, admission, justice. Finally, Maya used the money to establish a scholarship fund, the Thomas Garrett Engineering Scholarship, for students from working-class backgrounds, students who had the brilliance but not the means, students who might otherwise be overlooked or exploited. The first year, they awarded 12 scholarships. Maya presented them herself, told each recipient about her grandfather, about his stolen genius and quiet dignity, about building a life on integrity instead of cutting corners. Marcus restructured his own life entirely, stepped away from corporate leadership, focused full-time on the foundation, lived on the salary of an executive director rather than a billionaire, sold the penthouse, moved to a modest house in a Denver suburb, reconnected with his father, who had returned from Paris and was trying, in his own halting way, to make amends for decades of cowardice. And Marcus and Maya built something together. Not a romance novel whirlwind, but something slower, more solid, built on respect and shared values and the understanding that they had both survived the destruction of everything they thought they were and had chosen to become something better. A year after Sarah's death, on the anniversary of the gala, they returned to Montana, to the Memorial Hall, to the cemetery where 4 generations of their shared, tangled family rested. They brought flowers, stood at Sarah's grave, told her about the foundation's successes, about the lives changed, about the inventors protected, about the truth that continued to spread. Thank you, Maya said to the headstone, to her mother, to her grandfather, to her great-grandparents she had never met. Thank you for being strong enough to carry this, for refusing to let them silence you, for teaching me that integrity matters more than comfort, that truth matters more than reputation, that love matters more than empires. Marcus stood beside her, holding her hand. They had been together for 6 months now, officially, and it felt right. Felt like two people who had been broken by the same storm learning to rebuild together. As they walked back to the car, Maya stopped, looked at Marcus, asked a question that had been building for weeks. Do you ever regret it, giving it all up? The money, the power, the Ashford empire? Marcus thought about it, really thought, then shook his head. Not for a second. I traded an empire built on lies for a life built on truth. I traded isolation for partnership. I traded my grandfather's legacy for Daniel's. He pulled her close. And I found you. So no. No regrets at all. They drove back to Denver as the sun set. Back to their work, back to the foundation. Back to building something that mattered. Not an empire, a legacy. The kind that Daniel and Helen would be proud of. The kind that Thomas would recognize. The kind that Sarah had fought for with her last breath. Years passed. The foundation grew, helped hundreds of inventors, protected thousands of innovations, became the gold standard for intellectual property advocacy. Marcus and Maya married, quietly, in Montana, at the Memorial Hall, with Daniel and Helen's legacy surrounding them. Joseph Ashford walked Maya down the aisle, a complicated gesture, the father of the man who represented the family that destroyed hers, but also a gesture of healing, of generations choosing to be better than the ones before. They had a child, a daughter, named her Sarah, Sarah Helen, for the grandmothers who had fought, who had chosen love over comfort, who had spoken truth to power. They told her stories about her great-great-great-grandfather Daniel, who chose love over an empire, about her great-great-grandfather Thomas, whose genius changed the world even though someone else took credit, about her great-grandmother Sarah, who carried truth for 50 years and finally set it free. And they taught her about integrity, about choosing what is right over what is easy, about standing up for people who cannot stand up for themselves, about the fact that real wealth is not money or power, but the ability to look yourself in the mirror and be proud of the person looking back. One autumn day when Sarah Helen was 8 years old, they took her to Montana, showed her the Memorial Hall, showed her the cemetery, told her the full story, about theft and lies and a century of silence, about courage and justice and truth finally told, about the cost of integrity and the price of empire. She stood at her namesake's grave, this small girl who carried the blood of both families, builder and guardian, Ashford and Garrett, the reunited line, and she asked the question that children ask, the question that cuts to the heart of things. Were they happy, the people who chose truth, even though it cost them everything? Maya and Marcus looked at each other, thought about Daniel and Helen, about Thomas, about Sarah, about themselves, about the choices they had made, and the prices they had paid, and the lives they had built. Yes, Marcus answered. They were happy because they were free, free from lies, free from guilt, free to love fully and build honestly and live with integrity. And that kind of freedom is worth more than all the empires in the world. Sarah Helen thought about that, then nodded solemnly. Good, because that is what I want. When I grow up, to be free like that. Maya kissed her daughter's head. Then make choices that set you free. Choose truth even when it costs you. Choose integrity even when it is hard. Choose love even when the world says to choose power. And you will be free, I promise. As they walked back through the Memorial Hall, past the displays about Daniel and Helen and Thomas and Sarah, past the sealed cornerstone with the 2 rings inside, Maya thought about her mother, about how Sarah would never meet her granddaughter, would never see the foundation's full impact, would never know that the truth she fought for had changed not just one family, but hundreds. But she would know, Maya thought. Somehow, wherever she is, she knows. And she is proud. The eagle had risen. Not the Ashford eagle of empire and exploitation, but Daniel's eagle. The eagle of integrity and love. The eagle that chose to fly with a partner instead of flying alone. The eagle that valued freedom over power, truth over reputation, love over everything. It had taken a century. It had cost everything. But the eagle had finally risen, and its flight would light the way for generations to come, teaching them that empires are dust, but integrity is eternal, that wealth is temporary, but love is forever, that the only legacy worth leaving is the truth. And in a small cemetery in Montana, beneath autumn leaves and mountain sky, 4 generations rested together, united at last, their truth told, their names cleared, their legacy no longer one of silence and shame, but of courage and honor, and the stubborn refusal to let injustice have the final word. The eagle had risen, and it would never fall again.